All right, good evening, folks. This is November 5th, regular board meeting for Town of Anger. I hereby call it to order. Uh, so Halloween's over, and you know what that means, right, guys? It's Christmas. And so I couldn't think of anyone better to lead us in pledge and invocation tonight than Debbie and Jesse Can, a.k.a. Santa and Mrs. Claus. Would you guys mind joining us up here to lead us in pledge and invocation tonight? Good evening.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Dear Jesus, we bow humbly before you this evening, thanking you for all of our many blessings. You are so good to us. You bless us so many times when we do not deserve it, and often when we forget to ask. We thank you for all of those blessings. Tonight, we ask for wisdom as we begin this meeting with the leaders of our town. We acknowledge that we need your wisdom and insight, and we welcome your presence among us. Guide us in our discussions and decisions, helping us to seek what is best for all involved. Your word instructs us, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to you. We claim your word as we start our meeting, and we trust in your provision to help us to realize that integrity means consistency, not convenience, to help us to be polite and thoughtful in our actions and how we treat others, even when we disagree with them, to help us to communicate respectfully, using positive language and avoid aggressive tone, to help us to be active listeners, to focus on the person speaking and not interrupt, to help us to show appreciation and thank others for their help and contributions, to help us to approach conflict with a desire to resolve the conflict instead of fighting or proving others wrong. Help us to be better. We pray that we will have the eyes to see how our lives are all connected and how our common good is upheld when we listen and respond to each other in a respectful way. We pray for wisdom, strength, and courage to do what is right and good for all our citizens. Help us, God, to look back at the history of our town with pride and to look to the future of our town with excitement. We pray that we can embrace the growth and changes in our town and communities, that we can open our hearts to those who choose Anger as their home for their business or family. We thank you for this board, for our mayor, our town staff, our first responders, our citizens, and all those who work to make this place we call home such a wonderful town. We pray for this board meeting tonight. We pray for the newly elected leaders and those who continue to lead. Give them wisdom, integrity, compassion, and guidance as they deliberate on the items before them tonight and in the coming days and months. Help them to stay close to you in their thoughts, words, and actions. May all their decisions be righteous in your sight and for our benefit and for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you both very much. All right. We've all had a chance to see the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we add to the agenda.
Can you use your microphone?
An item for discussion of the Town of Andrews Board of Commissioners Ethic Policy.
All right, any discussion? You brought this to us tonight, and so
Right,
I've
and I
read it
apologize.
briefly.
I apologize, it was done quickly. I gave you not enough time, but you can read through it while we're discussing it or whatever, but I wanted to bring this, maybe this would help going forward. It would alleviate some of the problems and issues that the town has been having in the past year.
Sure. Dan, have you gotten it earlier than tonight?
I've got it tonight, but I've taken a brief look at it.
Okay. Personally, I wonder if this could be old business in December so that everyone has time to review it, but it's not up to me ultimately. So a motion was made, correct?
Yes.
All right. All those in favor of amending the agenda, raise your right hand. Opposed? It passes. Are there any other amendments to the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as written.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. That is unanimous. All right, we have several items in the consent agenda, all of which are in the printed agenda. It's mostly boilerplate stuff that we try to move through quickly. Would anyone like to discuss anything specifically out of the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. That is unanimous. All right, it is the first meeting of the month, which means we have public comment. Anyone may speak on any issue. If you're here to speak specifically at a public hearing, save your thoughts until that time. We'll do that right after this. Before speaking, please state your name and address, and we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, just so we can keep the meeting moving quickly. Generally speaking, we won't respond to your public comments at this time, but we may refer you to staff for follow-up or whatever we need to do after that. I have a sign-up sheet, but there were 3 sign-up sheets, and I was a little confused myself. So here's what we're going to do. If you are here for public comment, come on up, use the microphone, please, and give me your name and address. I'll take it down, and we'll go from there.
My name is Galen Bishop. I live at 9767 NC 210. And I wanted to just come up and say, how's that? Say thank you to Mayor and Commissioner Harmon for hanging in through some tough times. We've seen the kinds of difficulty you go through. They drove off a good commissioner, and I think things are looking a lot better for you guys now. So thank you so much for hanging in there. And I think I speak for 70% of Angier when I say we got your backs.
Thank you, sir.
Chuck Carey, 203 Blair Drive, Angier. I told the folks in my row I wasn't going to talk, and they thought I almost had a heart attack because that's not possible. But I just wanted to get up and say one thing and keep it short, which is surprising. Actually, it's about 5 words, I think. I'm truly humbled. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Liz, is our live feed working? I heard from someone that it might not. Okay.
Bobby Green, 133 South Cross Street, Angier, North Carolina, 27501. Long night last night. Grateful to be a part of running for a position here in Angier, representing this great town, these great people. I just want to say congratulations to all the winners, especially Mr. Chuck, Mayor. Thank you for introducing him, Mr. Chuck. I didn't win, but losing to Mr. Chuck, I was it softened the blow. Being a man of God and having some of the same values that I have, I think we're gonna be in a pretty dope position. Yeah. To Mr. Jim, appreciate you, man. Whatever happens, man, we had some good conversations, get some through our community. I just appreciate the service that you did for this town.
Thank you.
Ms. LaRue, it's been a long road.
Long 8 years.
Yeah, you did some good things for the town. Just want to say thank you for the things you did. Mr. Steve, I didn't meet you until later on down the road, but I want to say thank you. We shared some great conversations. Showed me that you got a dope car. That's pretty dope too. And to
It's an
to-
honor to know you, Bobby.
appreciate it, man. And for the ones that voted for me, thank y'all so much. That means a lot to me. For the ones who didn't vote for me, thank you for voting Mr. Chuck in. It's just like voting me in. We became real close, like super close. And, but anyway, that's enough of that. On to a new day. November the 30th, we are having a Thanksgiving giveaway. It's back to the basics with me. Even though I didn't win, it's not going to stop me from what I do for the town. So we're going to start at 10 o'clock right in Cut Chapel. So if y'all can be or free, I know it's Thanksgiving for everyone, but if you want to come out and volunteer, give back a little bit. We don't turn nothing down but our collars. So that's about it. Thank y'all.
Before you leave, Mr. Green, I'm going to break my own rule and say thank you for running. It takes a lot of courage that people don't understand to volunteer yourself and to campaign. And it takes even more courage than that to show up the day after and have nice things to say. And I am so glad to know you.
Appreciate it.
That's all I wanted to say.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You have to follow that.
Amy Dragata, 195 Windsor Drive, Anger. If you don't know me, the election was really close to my heart. It was really important to me that our town get involved in our election, and for that reason, I put together several events encouraging people to get to know the candidates and to know what they were voting for. I also put together a side-by-side and posted it on all the social media pages to help people know what the candidates' views were. I wanted to read a little bit of that tonight, just prior to us having discussion, just to kind of set the tone for where we're going to be going into this discussion tonight. And I also wanted to point out that last week we had several Oak Hill residents here. As you know, assisted living is probably difficult for them to get out and be able to come speak. And sadly, public comment was turned off and they were not allowed to speak at the meeting last week, involving something that is very dear to their heart. And I noticed tonight that they're not in the audience, so I hope that they are watching online. So I wanted to read a little bit, like I said, of the candidate side to side that I put together. These are words of Mr. Crisp and Mr. Cavacavage. They both posted them publicly on their own pages, so I feel okay with reading your words. One of the questions was, what do you believe is the biggest issue facing our town right now? Mr. Cavacavage, you said managing growth while preserving infrastructure, capacity, and small town character. Rapid development, constrained roads, drainage, utilities, and public services unless we plan and invest proactively. Balancing development with infrastructure, affordable housing, and quality of life considerations is the main challenge. And Mr. Crisp, you were asked, what are the top three priorities for the town? You said the top three issues facing Anger today are clear: fiscal responsibility, smart growth, and limiting government overreach. You said growth in Anger should be thoughtful and strategic, not reckless or rushed. Smart development strengthens our community. Unchecked expansion risks damaging the very character that makes Anger special. We need a government that works, not one that simply grows. And you also said our government must serve everyone, and that means listening to all voices, weighing all perspectives, and making choices that reflect the diverse needs of our town. So I hope you guys will remember those words tonight when you are discussing the rezoning that's coming.
Thank you.
So my name is Everett Blake. I live at 352 Gardner Road in Anger, but just on the other side. Just wanted to thank the commissioners for working. Ms. Ollie, for the last 8 years, thank you. Steve, you've only been here for 10 months, but we appreciate what you've given to the town. I enjoyed a good conversation yesterday. Thank you. Jim, known you for a while. Thank you. It was nice to see everybody there yesterday, but this is where I'm, as the current chairman of your planning board, and as soon as I turn in my application in, maybe another couple of years, want to start looking at our UDO and what we've written and how we've done things. I had the wonderful privilege of helping write a lot of this one 20 years ago, 18 years ago. We made it better, but it's not perfect. So what we want to see is, as our town grows, how do we fix certain things? I've taken to driving through neighborhoods and writing down things. Is this neighborhood right? Is this neighborhood wrong? Did we allow enough parking? Do we have enough open space in these areas? So what I would ask for the citizens of Anger is, as you're riding around and as we're looking at things, tell us what we did right, what we did wrong. We have a period of months worth of meetings coming up talking about the development ordinance and the UDO and where can we do better. We will form the foundation for builders and developers to come do what they do. We want to make it easy and available for them to come and make it clear what the town's intentions are, which leads me to the second thing in your agenda, which will be the comprehensive land use. We had a great time working on it, talking about it with people in the town, with different leaders, trying to put together a good concept of what we want to see in Anger. But it, like the UDO, has to be a living document. We have to say every couple of years, did we check off something? Did we achieve a goal? Writing it down and putting it on the shelf doesn't do anything good for us. We need to make sure that we are achieving the goals that the comprehensive land use and the town of Anger, which hopefully you guys will adopt today, puts out these as our priorities and what our citizens have told us through surveys, through town meetings, through public comment. But guys, thank you. Mr. Green, it was wonderful to meet you last night at the parking lot, new candidates. I know I tried to walk around to see everybody yesterday because as part of your planning board, I'm here to help you guys. And we're here to help build the right things for our town. But thank you for giving me a few minutes.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment tonight?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Denise Galloway, 5953 Cokesbury Road, Fuquay Varina. I live in Harnett County, North Carolina, in an unincorporated part of the county. Couple things to say to you tonight. Heard a lot of talk in this room just this evening about truth, accountability, and transparency. I'm working on a little bit of a cold here today. So I just want to say it would be absolutely unethical for me to continue writing news stories about the town of Anger, about the good things in the town of Anger, because I have made it known very clearly, standing right here, that I have an issue that the town of Anger needs to resolve with me. That being said, I am perfectly free to write my own personal story on my own personal social media accounts, and that's what I did this week. I want you to know that everything I wrote is the absolute truth, backed by facts and evidence. All I'm simply asking is for this town to meaningfully engage with me to resolve the concerns I have carefully, factually presented to you. Your town attorney seems to think that defamation is protected by the First Amendment. Dan, it's not. You know that. You should play the recording of our meeting. You absolutely did. Derek was sitting right there. Share it. I'll share it tomorrow. No worries. Got you. So staff members in this town took the time to publicly disparage my small business. It seems like a very small thing to happen, but the town of Angier disparaged my small business on the town of Angier Facebook page. They have never done that to any other small business. When that happened, I took the time to analyze the town of Angier Facebook page. I am not counting posts where groups of and lists of businesses were presenting. From January of 24 to January of 25, I counted how many individual businesses had received a shout out from the town of Angier. There were 23. One business in particular got 4 mentions, 3 of those in 1 month. That's the same business that the mayor illegally worked on. The owner of that business is now elected as one of your commissioners. So we need to think about these things. I'm still asking you to resolve all of the issues I've brought to you in a fair, transparent, and accountable manner. And there is a statute of limitations for the claims that I have. Other people have gone over time without being stopped. Thank you very much. There's a statute of limitations on the claims that I will file against this town, Dan, and it ends in January. So I truly want you to meet with me to resolve my differences. They're serious. They should not have happened to me. They shouldn't happen to anybody else. I do wonder who else has been treated this unfairly by this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment tonight?
I'm Sue Langley, and I live at 298 Kirk Adams Road. And I just want to say something nice. I love the park. We have the best park. If you compare it to Fuquay, Raleigh has some great parks, but we do too. And it's wonderful to be able to go to the park. There's a police present there. The bathrooms are open on Saturday morning. For those of us that run, that's important. And I just wanted to say thank you that we have such a good park.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, anyone else? All right, we are going to move on. Forgive me while I sort my paperwork here. Public hearings. Number 1, our first public hearing tonight is a rezoning application submitted by Peter Nassen. Hope I pronounced that correctly. Jeff will present that to us tonight, and then we will open the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Tonight you have a rezoning request for property located east of town along NC 210. It's comprised of 5 parcels and approximately 16.16 acres in size. The parcels are shown on the screen here is the ones that have the red star associated with them. Again, the existing conditions is residential structure, some farmland. Access would be off of NC 210, again, 16.16 acres. Some of the surrounding land uses are medium and low residential. The zoning compatibility, the request is to rezone property from R10 to R6. I just failed to mention that earlier. But the request is to go to R6, which would be 6,000 square foot lots. And then generally all the other things that would be allowed in R10 are generally allowed in R6. It's just smaller lots. Land use compatibility, our current comprehensive plan shows this as medium density residential, which over the time we've talked about that being anywhere between 3 to 5 units to an acre. And so that's not compatible with our current comprehensive plan. Through our evaluation process, we do this with every rezoning request. We go through 4 evaluations. The impact to adjacent property owners and the surrounding community is reasonable, and the benefits of the rezoning outweigh any potential inconvenience or harm to the community. Staff selected no on that one, and the reasoning, the request that zoning to R6 could have an unknown impact of existing infrastructure. Typical R6 development in the town of Anger have included transportation analysis and or conditions to be considered by the town. I will say that that has changed and evolved over the years. Within the last 5 years, the town has consistently had conditions associated with projects. There was a time in the late teens, early 20s, that the town would approve projects without any conditions or transportation analysis. But recent approvals have also had conditions. The requested zoning district is compatible with the existing land use classification. We talked about that. Our current comprehensive plan says that this is, should be medium density, and that is not alignment with the future land use map of 2021. Third criteria is the proposal does enhance or maintain public health, safety, and general welfare. Staff's reasoning on this one to select no was too many unknowns with a general use rezoning, does not allow for the town to comprehensively evaluate the proposed uses and or impacts to the town. And then the fourth one is a small scale rezoning, and this obviously is not a small scale rezoning. So staff is recommending to deny the project, thinking rezoning requests could potentially have an unreasonable impact on the surrounding community and harm the public health, safety, and general welfare for the reasons stated in the evaluation. Recommended to deny the application. The plan board did hear this recommendation, or did hear this request at their September plan board meeting, and there was a vote of 3-2 to recommend denial from there. The chairman is here, and he can express the board's position on that if you all would wish to have that. I can entertain any questions that you all may have, but that's the request and the evaluation as we got to hear.
Jeff, before I open the public hearing, just as a matter of procedure, it says that we need to vote on a consistency statement prior to this rezoning request. Or Dan, maybe you could jump on this too, but admittedly, I'm not familiar with exactly what that is or how we would do that.
Consistency statement would be whether the rezoning request is consistent or not consistent with our adopted land use plan. And if you are going to approve the rezoning, you would do a consistency statement that states that you found that it was consistent and how it was consistent. Sorry. And if you were to not approve the rezoning, you would need to do a consistency statement to state how it's, you would have to state how it's inconsistent with our adopted land use plan.
It seems like we'd have to vote on the approval or denial before we could do that, right?
Yeah, well, presumably during the course of the discussion, you'd be talking about how it's consistent or not consistent with the land use plan. And so when you vote to whichever action you end up taking, the board ended up taking, that'll be reduced to writing in a consistency statement that says how it's consistent. And
Is it okay if we did the consistency statement after the approval or denial?
It would have to, because the consistency statement is a written document that the board would issue, basically a finding that it's consistent or not consistent with the land use plan.
All right, because it says prior to voting on the request, and I just.
Well, you have to decide whether it's consistent or not consistent, and why it is or isn't. But then that ultimately gets reduced to writing. So yes, the discussion of it needs to happen before you vote, and then in voting, you'll determine whether it's consistent or not consistent with the land use plan.
Okay, so we need to discuss the consistency.
Correct.
And then an actual statement can be rolled in with the motion to approve or deny.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. With that, I'll open the public hearing. Jeff, thank you for staying. Just really quick, boilerplate stuff. This is not right now in town limits, right?
Correct.
It's ETJ.
Correct.
It's abuts town limits.
Correct.
Okay. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, it's my understanding that because this is a straightforward rezoning, that really, it wouldn't be wise for us to consider any talk about specific plot plan or layout, because ultimately the decision is to approve or deny simply of rezoning.
Correct.
And so we need to be wise to consider all of the possibilities of what R6 could be.
Correct.
And in that case, 16.16 acres by the square foot is over 117 lots. If you made every lot on that parcel a house, which we know in practice you could not, but mathematically
Sure.
that would be allowed.
Sure.
I think that's all the questions I had. I believe the applicants here tonight, if they have a presentation or anything, I think we should hear that first, and then we'll take some public input. Well, I'm sorry, did anyone else have a question for Jeff?
I would like to talk to the chairperson, if he can come up here again.
Before we proceed, I do want to just add in, one of the things we can do with the consistency statement is if the minutes reflect that discussion, that's sufficient.
Right.
We also need to adopt a statement of reasonableness, which can consider size, physical locations, attributes of the area, benefits, detriments to the landowners, neighbors, relationship between current, actual, and permissible development on the tract and adjoining areas that would be permissible under the new rezoning, why the actions in the public interest, any change conditions warranting the amendment. Those are things you may consider. You don't have to consider all of those, but you do need to consider whether it's reasonable in light of those types of factors, as well as whether it's consistent or inconsistent with the adopted land use plan.
Okay. Keep that handy. Any questions for Jeff before I let him go?
I think they wanted Everett.
All right. Did you want to hear from Everett first?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Mr. Blake, if you don't mind, we would love to hear your insights on this one.
Never mind. I get to talk in front of a
I didn't think you would, but as a formality, I'm not going to force you to speak. So,
Yes. So, of course, this was the meeting that got no recording. But the minutes have been approved. Did y'all get a copy of the minutes as they were written?
I did. I mean, I saw when it was posted. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So my question is, you said you had 2 board members that were in favor of it. Who were the board members?
The 2 board members voted against the rejection.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you if that means they were both in favor. I was one, and Byron was with the other one.
Okay, so you can't tell me if you were in favor of it? Or?
So in my head, when I look at a straight rezoning, it is a straight rezoning.
Mhm.
It is all possible. It's just like commercial. I can't tell you that I'm going to rezone it for a Family Dollar or a other type of a business.
Right.
It's a straight rezoning. That's all this request was. It is not a plot plan. It is not a density. It is a rezoning. If you figured 5 lots, which would be medium, 3 to 5, you're right at that upper scale. It fits. It's also, there are zonings close enough to it that would make it semi-reasonable. So there is, in my head, some reasoning behind it that, yes, it could be passed. Do I want another neighborhood of tiny lots out there? I'd like to have some extra safety, because that was the number one thing that the board talked about, was highway safety. Can we get people in and out? How are we going to address traffic? But at the same time, that was not the question. This is not a conditional zoning. This is not a PUD. This is a request to rezone this land this way. I also know the litigious nature of rezoning requests and people coming into us lately with Board of Adjustments and everything else. In my head, because I have said certain things about businesses, commercial or residential to me fits in the same bucket. So is it a stretch to vote to approve it? I didn't vote to approve it. I voted to reject the denial.
Okay.
And that is my portion. The board was clearly, when they talked about it, as the chairman, it is not my job to drive the decision for the board. I listened, the motion came quickly. We put the vote out there, and it was very quick, so the first three hands shot up. It was like, okay, that was pretty quick. So, any other questions? Do you want to hear from the other gentleman? Do you want to make a comment? And of course, he was a former chairman, so that's why I don't mind if he wants to say anything.
Myra, yeah, we need you to use the microphone so we can have it recorded.
Sorry.
And sir, you don't have to speak.
No.
You have-
Yeah, I mean, Everett and I, we agree on the same thing. I didn't agree to approve it. It was just rezoning. That was all. We took in consideration of the safety, but we was both in line of the same thing. You know, safety was the key element, but you know, we was just rezoning. That was all.
All right.
So,
Thank you.
And just like any commercial building, commercial project, there are a lot of standards that need to be met to be built on. It's not like they can go out and build 6,000 square foot lots tomorrow, because we all know there's not enough sewer without being a part of the city. So there are a whole lot of other things that have to happen before ground gets broken out there. And that's what the TRC is for, and that's what the next pieces are for. Ours is, did it fit? And I had a hard time right then jumping up and down and saying there was no way it fit. All right.
Thank you, guys. Would the applicant like to make their presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board of Commissioners. My name is Jennifer Scott. I practice law with Shipman and Wright. It's a law firm out of Wilmington. However, I live in Pittsboro, which is really your neighbor, in Chatham County, right over here. So I'm going to start this little process. I think it'll be easier to move you through my thoughts about this rezoning request. I do want to mention that my client, Donald Gregory, is here tonight with me. Also, Peter Canosen, who you've noted on the materials, is the applicant. He's our engineer with regard to this project. So, Anger, so what's happening in Anger? You guys have a lot going on, and I do a lot of this work in and around the state, so I can tell you that it's exciting times. In looking at your Anger 2045 comprehensive land use plan that Withers Ravenel produced, it looks like you guys are going to be looking at that in a little bit. It notes population growth, strong and sustained, from roughly 8,000 people to 25,000 by 2045. By other standards, large cities in North Carolina, that's not a lot, but for a small town, tripling up is kind of a big deal. Median property values and median income is increasing. The good news for you, major highway and public transportation improvements are underway and envisioned for Harnett County and for our metropolitan region, the larger region, with a total of 12 projects within and surrounding the town of Anger, most notably the NC 55 bypass, and I know you know about that. Anger still has, good news too, approximately 53% of its land available for development. That is rare and unique for a lot of the surrounding area. And you are bordered by Wake, Johnston, and Chatham counties, not to mention other things going on in Harnett, all with massive economic development projects and jobs growth underway. So what does that mean for you? Generally, people who are coming, and it was a lovely prayer, by the way, about how to address what's going on in your town and how to communicate with one another. People need restaurants, churches, shops, healthcare facilities, professional services, trades, and they also need places to live. In looking at your 2045 comprehensive land use plan projections, the results of your community feedback showed that 57% of the participants in Anger think that single-family homes should be the housing type made available to serve the town's population. That's interesting because sometimes you hear, we want more concentrated development, townhomes or apartments or things, and so your folks are really interested in single-family housing, which leads us to my client's parcel. Mr. Gregory's piece is here in the striped area. I'm not the best with technology, but I did do this right on my own with the little stripes. Yeah. So you can see the 16.16 acre parcel there. Zoomed in here, I think I can do this. Maybe not. To the right of the parcel there is Mr. Gregory's family land, the farmland there. You can see down at the right-hand corner the structures where he was born and raised. That house, Mr. Gregory grew up in, and interesting story, his family has been on that property since the 1800s. And he told me the first bathroom they had was built on the porch when he was in the 8th grade. I love that kind of stuff. It's always fun to hear about people who have been around for a long time. So this rezoning request is about a 16-acre parcel that is adjacent to his existing farm and rental homes. It's currently zoned R10 with a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet. He's requesting R6, a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet. And so, the question is, R10, I mean, isn't that enough? If you do the straight math, and the gentleman just before me was talking about that, straight math, you could put 70 units on this 16 acres. But that's not the reality, right? For when you're designing a parcel of land for potential development, design is limited by lots of things. Listed them here: topography, access, the internal roads and infrastructure. You got to put in utilities and so on. Wetlands that might be on the property and the buffers that are required. Not to mention, as a gentleman before me spoke, you come to TRC, there's a subdivision process, there's permitting processes, there's state processes. All of that goes into how you decide what you're going to do with a piece of property and maximize the development potential. This is the map that Mr. Knosen has put together for a general layout of this piece of property. There are 64 units shown on there. There's a wetlands area shown on the left-hand side. The top, you can't really see the detail great, but it deals with what the DOT has told us would be required for road widening, a turn lane. There's landscape buffers shown on there, and then a general roadway infrastructure. Now, this would have to be tweaked, of course, because you may lose a lot or two if the post office requires centralized box units these days, things like that. But the reality for us is that asking for an R6 does not mean we're going to put 175 units, 248 units, 300 units, like all of this worry about the math, right? And the mayor said it, there's lots of things that go into how you design a piece of property like this. And this is what the intention is. So the intention is for 64 single-family residential subdivision lots that Mr. Gregory hopes to fully entitle for construction, which would require widening and a turn lane on 210. That is completely in the purview of the North Carolina DOT. That is their road. North Carolina 210 does not belong to Anger. It belongs to the state of North Carolina. This would require also some DEQ permitting because there are some wetlands on the property. That's the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality and Control. And also, this request does not expose the town to a high density, which is what the concern is here, as far as I can tell, to a high density townhome or apartment project, because your ordinance, as your town manager, sorry, I'm going to forget the names, had just put up the charts. Any kind of high density development, townhome project, apartment project would require an applicant to come back and ask for a conditional use. So there is a certain need for a straight rezoning, and that is appropriate in some cases, and this is one of those. So I have this slide here to talk about opposition concerns versus reality and what this conditional use preference means for Anger. The concern is that these unknown impacts that you heard your planning director talk about, your town manager talk about, there really aren't unknown impacts with a project like this. It's a 16-acre piece. We've got a design. That design is really limited by the nature of the property. And so in reality, there's very little actual impact. The concerns about traffic, whether this triggers the need for a traffic impact analysis, and I apologize for using the slogan there, TIA. I'm assuming that you all are familiar with that term. The traffic impact analysis is not triggered by your town ordinance by a long shot for 64 units, and then certainly not by the DOT for what would be mandated by the state for a traffic impact analysis. It's just very little addition to your existing infrastructure. They would require, as I said, we had talked to DOT, they would require a widening there and a turn lane, which is going to deal with those sorts of issues if this project moves forward. We had a conference with the mayor earlier with regard to this project, and the concern about conditional use preference was, well, we then get to dictate open spaces and parks and things like that. Well, this parcel is 16 acres. It's way under a half what you would require under your ordinance for triggering amenities and open spaces. And in reality, for this piece where it's situated, Jack Marley Park is right nearby, like literally within 1,000 feet. And then so I've also heard that it has this future land use incompatibility that is not compatible with your future land use. And I would have to say to you, that's not really true. I mean, the reality is this is the parcel, again, in green with the stripes, and just look around it. Much, much, much tinier and denser things going on in Angier, especially there right to the right and north. I mean, you've got a very dense project there, I believe, is apartments. And so what's happening around this parcel? What you heard the town manager say was that, oh, it's just farmland and residential uses. Not really. What's happening is Spring Village, Oak Hill, Myrtle Grove, Tanglewood Down, Catherine's Retreat, Stonegate Villas, apartments, okay? And this is what those look like. This is Spring Village. This is Myrtle Grove. This is Catherine's Retreat. And this is Stonegate. And you'll notice a lot of these don't look terribly much smaller than what we just told you we want to do on this parcel, right? So, again, is that really that impactful? You know, when you're talking about high density versus medium density, I don't think so, right? So let's get you back here. Sorry for flipping through that to make everybody dizzy, right? So in discussing land use concepts in general, in most other jurisdictions, this project, what we're asking for, would not even qualify as a high density. I mean, and that's your prerogative. Your ordinance says what it says. But just to give you some perspective across the state, medium density ranges from 6 to 15 units per acre. I just did an amendment to the zoning ordinance in Wilson, and I was talking to your mayor about it. You know, we had medium density set at 15 units per acre. That would seem crazy to you, and I get that, right? But I want to make sure you have a point of view here. Whether we call it medium density or high density is really sort of irrelevant to the discussion of whether what you're trying to do is create a diversity of housing types, which bridges the gap between large lot single family housing, which isn't going to last, right? It's just not. You're not going to have 25 acres in a house anymore, or you're going to be that's a really odd bird, right? But then you have apartments, super dense, transient people. That's not what we're after. What we want to do, as hopefully as good planners, is bridge this gap and give you a diversity of housing. And what my client wants to do on his property is, as I've told you, 64 units, which really doesn't fall into the high density category in the real world. So what's the difference between Mr. Gregory and the other projects that have been approved in Angier over the last few years? Well, my clients are Donald Gregory and his cousin Billy Rogers. They're both in their 70s, born and raised in Angier, been here on and off their whole lives. Their family has owned this land since the 1800s. And like many locals, and some of you in this room, I'm sure, these gentlemen have seen some hard times in Angier, and now they would like the opportunity, with growth coming, to capitalize on a small piece of their property and make some profit for their family with a small project, which we believe is low impact and very reasonable. My clients are not, I've told you what they are, so what they're not corporate developers with endless resources and political pull, and those things change the nature of the game. So in sum, just given the facts, I think this general rezoning request is actually fairly benign. It's reasonable, even though it's not a conditional use request. In contrast, I wanted to mention this board approved Myrtle Village earlier this year. 250 townhomes, commercial, retail, all along your Highway 55 corridor. It makes sense to make that a conditional use. Of course, you want to have some constraints on a property like that. But this request is compatible with surrounding uses. It doesn't create any unknown adverse impacts that cannot be otherwise controlled. And I want to make sure to make that point, because by the time somebody comes through as your planning director said, TRC, the permitting process, there's site plan review, there's multiple opportunities to condition the project. So in some ways, getting upset about a straight rezoning request is appropriate. In some ways, it's not. And if it wasn't appropriate at all in any circumstance, it wouldn't be available to you in your ordinance. And you all may change that going forward. But at this point in time, a straight rezoning request is applicable and it is appropriate. I will mention that, Mr. Gregory, that will be requesting annexation if the rezoning is approved. That's sort of an obvious thing because you need to fold into all of the utilities and things that the town can provide service-wise. And ultimately, my client deserves the opportunity to develop his family land in a way that provides a reasonable return for him and his family while also being reasonably beneficial for the town. I want to take questions for you, but in the meantime, I want to say that I respectfully request that you vote to approve this project, that you vote that it is consistent with the land use plan, it is reasonable, and as a straight rezone request, it's fairly benign. But we're here for questions. Mr. Knoesen is here for questions. Donald Gregory's here for questions. I know there's some opposition in the crowd. There's also some folks that are here in support. So if you're so inclined, I hope you will ask for that, and we plead for your approval. Thank you.
If you don't mind, ma'am, I have lots of questions, and they're not all for you because some of them might be more appropriate for the engineer or even Jeff again. I just took a couple of notes because I hadn't seen this before tonight. Very well put together. I think you did a great job with your lines, by the way, probably better than I could do. Early on in your presentation, I was curious, and I don't even think it really relates to this, but you said that 53% of Anger was not developed.
That's what your future land use plan says. That's
In town limits?
That's Withers and Ravenel's thinking, and that is from the study area from their project.
All right, I'll ask them that because they're up
Their
next.
study
I think,
area
but-
is bigger than your town limits.
Oh, well, we control our town limits.
Right. Well, and your ETJ.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is not part of the town. I wanted to thank you, well, really probably the engineer for this one, for bringing us plot plans, lot count. To me, unfortunately, I can't really consider that because it's not, I mean, you're asking for a straight R6 rezone.
Right.
If
But
you
it's
were
all that's
asking for
available.
this plot plan, then, we would feel confident in that. If it had come through conditional, then we have a little more authority to look at a plot plan and assume that we could get what we're told we're getting. Not that he wouldn't. I don't doubt that he would. But in my own mind, I cannot consider that that's what will happen. We have to consider what could happen in any case if the property turns over
Well,
for
let
some
me respond
reason.
to that, Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
because the reality for that plan that I presented
Mhm.
is that it has been designed based on what's available for that piece of property.
Right.
And every piece of property is specific because it has attributes that are going to limit it, right? And this one, that's what's available for what he can do. Otherwise, anything else he wants to do in your ordinance is going to bring him back for a conditional use request. So that's it.
All right. I also, it says that he will apply for annexation, which, again, thank you for saying that, but I cannot consider that when I'm considering this rezoning. And your client's information, it's great to know. I did not know that about him or about his first toilet. But no, I'm not joking. That was good knowledge. I don't have a story like that, but I wish I did. But again, we have to consider, we have to take out who is applying for something to consider what the impact of a decision like this does for the whole town. It's the only way to be fair is to treat every applicant, if it was a large corporate developer who brings their lawyer to talk to us, or a small hometown developer, or my mother. If my mother brought this to the board, I'd probably have to recuse myself, but I would have to treat her in the same manner as I would anybody else who asked for the rezoning of the same parcel. That's not really a question. I'm making observations in case you had something to add to it.
Well, I will add then that I think I addressed the impacts and, you know, most importantly, that those are minimal with this particular request, that it's available and appropriate
That's your
under your ordinance.
interpretation,
Yes,
correct?
that is.
But we don't know, in fact, what the impacts will be.
I think those are calculable given the plan that we've presented.
I don't know how to calculate them.
Well, your ordinance says that if you don't meet a certain a number of units, then you don't need a TIA. The DOT says if you meet a certain number of this,
Right.
then you have to widen the road. You have to put a turn lane. When you come back for subdivision approval, your TRC will tell them what needs to happen with the road infrastructure and utilities. So that's the point I'm making.
Right.
Is that the
So-
impact is not only calculable, but it's also something you can predict.
Jeff, on that note, do we have an extra microphone? We might send one to the staff table. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
No worries.
That's fine.
I can move aside.
No, I'm good.
Jeff, she brought up, and so I'm curious to know, what are the triggers for a TIA?
So we do have for any type of special use permit, conditional zoning, those types of projects, those automatically have to have TIAs.
Okay.
There are triggers that at certain criteria, don't have them right off the top of my head, but maybe I don't know. I would hate to misspeak, but I can find that out for you real quick.
But is it a lot count? Is a lot count one of those triggers?
And trips, yes.
Mr. Knosen can speak to that if you'd like.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, because I'm curious to know what the triggers are, if it's an acreage thing or a lot count thing, and if he has that.
It's a trips per day thing based on the units.
Okay.
Mhm.
Excuse me, Peter Knassen, Jones Knassen Engineering,
Yeah.
at 221 North Salem Street in Apex. Known Donald for a long time, so good guy. But anyway, I've reached out to a colleague with Kimley Horn, asked him about TIA issues that might come into play with this type of development. He says that the thresholds for a TIA in the ordinance are 1,000 daily trips or 100 peak trips per hour. He said that it would take 90 units to require a TIA in the town based on the ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
We are at 64, so we're not at that threshold to require a TIA per the ordinance. That is my understanding based on a conversation I had, again, with a colleague with Kimley Horn.
Who determines what the lot count is for a given parcel?
Well,
They say 64, but
well, that's undetermined.
okay. All right. Right, and that's why it's. I mean, they really could not build 117 lots, on every single square foot. But I mean, I'm sorry, I'm thinking out loud right now. But who calculates that 90? And then, so you mentioned that he owns the adjoining properties to this. I'm sorry. Are you aware of how big those are and why none of them were included in this?
I believe there's 50 or more acres there, but this parcel is it was acquired between the family members with Billy, his cousin, for this purpose. So it was singled out for a potential development again for the benefit of the family and also the benefit of the town.
Okay. And the last comment I had for you, and the others might have some more too. Thank you for meeting with us last week online on a video call. You mentioned the density that you are working with Wilson, and we talked about that in the meeting. I think you called us arcane, and you know what? I think a lot of us are okay with that. 3 to 5 units per acre for us as a town that doesn't have multi-level apartments or has already had a lot of townhomes that we've been having to deal with that don't meet, 15 units per acre. Where I think we're comfortable at 3 to 5 for medium right now. And that'll change, but I don't mind being arcane right now.
Yeah, and forgive me, I don't know what term I used, but my point
Arcane.
was that statewide, that is, whether you call it low density, medium density,
Sure.
or high density, the reality is that 64 units on 16 acres is just not high density. I mean, the reality is that if using your 3 to 5 number for your medium density,
Yeah.
on this track, you'd be somewhere between 48 and 50 units anyway. So
Right.
we're talking about a very small, number between 50 and 64, if he's able to get the full 64 units based on the plan that we have currently. Again,
Right.
I'm generally do this a lot. They're going to lose a couple of lots.
Sure.
So the gap is even smaller.
But we really don't know how many lots it could be.
Well, we have an engineer here who's laid it out the best he can with the topography, with the roads, the internal roads,
Yeah.
with the road widening, with the landscape buffers that are required, with the wetlands that are on the property,
Mhm.
and that's what you get. I mean,
That is an example. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think, in
the reality.
a conditional rezoning, then we would consider that as, what the intentions are. But I can't consider that. I have to consider that we don't know what this could be. We really don't.
Well, and okay, go ahead. Thank you, Peter.
I've been doing land planning and engineering for 30 plus years.
Mhm.
Worked on numerous developments. As you know, and as you mentioned, any piece of property that develops has infrastructure, streets, sewer, water, storm drainage with stormwater control stormwater control measures. This site has wetlands on it. I've looked at this site at the request of Donald. I've done layouts, 64 lots. Frankly, I'll be lucky if he gets 64 lots.
Mhm.
I do this for a living. I've laid it out. I know you might have your requirements, but I'm just stating for the record, as his engineer, that no more than 64 lots are going on this site for an R6 zoning.
Oh, yeah. Sir, I have no doubt that your capacity to engineer a site plan far exceeds mine. But in this case, I can't consider it as I have to use the numbers. I don't think you're wrong, but we don't know. I mean, it's 100, the math is 117, which is unrealistic. Could be 80, 90, it could only be 64. But we don't, we can't consider 64 because we don't have a condition that says we are going to build 64. As an example. In a conditional rezoning, I could say, yes, sir, that looks fantastic, and I believe you, and it would be a condition that it would be 64 units, and everyone would take a breath of relief knowing that it would be a maximum of 64 units. So, but no doubt on my end that that's what you guys have calculated for that. Are there any other questions for the attorney?
How long have you had the site plan prepared?
Well, I can speak that I know Donald had this land plan by another firm, probably about, if I was to remember correctly, almost 2 years ago.
As an R10? You had a site plan created based on the R10 zoning of it currently?
No, there's a history involved with this piece. If you want to get into history, I'll certainly will. Based on what my knowledge is, I'll just let you know. If you want to go there, I'll certainly will. I might need Donald to come up and give a little bit of history. You want me to do the best I can?
I'm just curious specifically if knowing that conditional rezoning is something that would appease the board considering the contentious nature. I'm just wondering why we weren't open to that.
Part of it has to do with the process that requires through conditional zoning. There are things that are required in a conditional zoning, such as a TIA, that bring in that could cost significant money. There's other things that may be involved that I'm not fully aware of in a conditional, but there's a dollar value. And when you don't know whether something is going to get approved or not, I mean, it's hard to spend that kind of money.
Do you know how much that is? A TIA? I'm just curious.
I'm not a traffic engineer, but I've seen them as much as 15 to 20 grand.
Yeah, I called around and asked for a development this size, and I was told 8 to 10. That wasn't a quote, certainly. I asked somebody for their best guess, And I know a little bit about development, not a ton of it, but I learned a while ago that in Andrew, at least, it costs about $100,000, a lot, to get to a point to develop undeveloped land, to get to a point where you can even build a house. And part of the reason that our house pricing is going up so much is because just to get a lot to build on gets a developer to $100,000 per lot in expenses. And so, I don't know, you might know what it was going to cost to develop this before building houses. I don't know if you know off the top of your head. If it's $100,000 a lot, it's $6.4 million is what it would cost to get this parcel ready to build a house on. Do you think that's...
I don't have that. I don't have those kind of numbers.
Okay. All right. If it was 6.4 million, then $10,000 is a really small amount of that. And I get, the TIA is one thing for sure, but all the other expenses that you would have to incur, plot plans, engineering, wetland stuff, something that you guys are going to have to do anyway, right after this point, before you can get permits to develop it. You still would have to do all of that to engineer it, the same kinds of things that you would need to do before a conditional rezone, right?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there is a process after a request is approved.
Yeah.
Going forward to bid out the construction costs and what that takes, and what you need to go forward.
Right.
But your numbers, it varies wildly.
Sure.
And whether you've got, the topography just to start is huge. Drainage to start is huge. These. There's just no, your number. There's no way to.
Right.
No way to
I'm
speculate.
using numbers historical to town of Andrew,
Right.
developers that are developing
there's
in
no
town
way
of Andrew.
to address that.
That's fine.
specifically.
But even if it was half of that, $10,000 out of 3.2 million.
Well, but frankly, the history, as I know it, and I'm late to the game, is that you've had multiple iterations of staff changes, and Mr. Gregory, as I said, has been here the whole time with this project, sort of going through the motions with whomever. And at this point, he's in the process. And our goal here tonight was to bring you the factual basis of what is available on this property, what he intends to do, and to help you understand what those impacts are. We believe they are nominal, and this is a fairly benign request.
Right.
And so we're not asking for conditional use rezoning. We're asking for a straight rezoning. I've given you an opportunity to understand what that means for this parcel. We don't think it's terribly impactful. And again, asking for a vote to allow Mr. Gregory to move forward in this process. If he changes his mind and wants to do something that's more impactful, you will have every opportunity to put the restrictions on him, to make him come back, to deal with a conditional use process later if he decides he wants to do something more dense, or another developer decides they want to do something more dense. But the reality for us right now is we're just asking for the R6.
Right.
It doesn't change the nature of what he can do on this property very much,
Right.
if at all, with regard to the R10 versus the R6. So
Now, you mentioned staff turnover, and that's true. Between any of the staff that he would have worked with in the planning department or town managers.
I think he's worked with 3 town managers at this
At
point.
3 town managers, at probably at least 3 planning directors. How many of them suggested to him that he go for a conditional rezoning?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Do you know, or does Donald know? Jeff is the only one who has encouraged you to go through conditional rezoning. That's not been my understanding, but thank you. I had another question.
I'd like to hear the history, because I know you said 2 years. I know if this has gone on longer than 2 years. We have a previous commissioner right there that can tell you when he was on the board, it was going on. And it's been going on longer than 3 years. I've been sitting up here for 8, so I know it's been going on longer than 2 years.
Right. Well, back really quick. So the reason I asked about the expenses to develop it after and the expenses to develop it before, or that I'm trying to find in my own mind what the actual cost difference is, dollars and cents, to do it conditional versus non-conditional. The traffic impact analysis, I think, is definitely one for sure. that you would not have to do. But is there anything else expense wise?
Well, let me just to give you a little perspective, because I
Uh-huh.
represent developers all over the place, and frankly, I work as general counsel for a developer out of Cary,
Mhm.
a very active developer. So the way that works is that an offer is made on a piece of property, and I'm sure these other projects that you've approved from out of locale and out of state developers work this way. They put an offer in on someone like Donald Gregory's property,
Mhm.
and they have a certain amount of money they're willing to spend to determine whether that property is viable for what they want to do. That's their due diligence
Yeah.
time, right? And those are often long periods of time, a year, 2 years, sometimes 3 years, while the property's moving through the process. You'll see the applicant on your paperwork is Donald Gregory, but you're dealing with Toll Brothers or Pulte or Del Webb or something like that, because they're not going to invest in the property until they know that they're going to get what they want. So it's really no different here. Donald
Yeah.
Gregory is saying to you, I don't want to spend a whole lot of money. I'm just me, right? If I'm Toll Brothers, I've got a lot more in my kitty to spend on traffic impacts, wetlands mitigation studies, environmental phase 1 and phase 2, all of these things that have to happen. But they're not going to buy the land. They're not going to take it down until they know what they've got and what they can get, right? It's
Sure.
different for him. He already owns it. He
Yeah.
already owns it.
But I'm trying to keep that part out of it. But you would know this better than I
but
would
you're asking the
because
question, so I want to make sure we address that part for you, because that part is
the difference
really
between
important
expense.
for someone who's been here since the 1800s, lived here his whole life, and simply wants to take a 16-acre parcel that's next to his family farmland and turn it into something entirely reasonable.
Right. Well, a potato farmer can't stay a potato farmer forever, right?
Not usually.
Yeah. So the expense difference between doing it before or after.
Well, I think it's the expense difference, and it's also the fact that he was well into the process for years, and so here we are. And
Yeah.
again, my goal here tonight was not to get into an argument with you or
No,
frustrate
of course
the
not.
process.
I'm
but
trying-
really
I
just
would like to understand
explain
it, yeah.
why this is not as unreasonable as some of the stuff that I've read online would have you believe, because it's really not that impactful.
Thank you for saying that. You mentioned Myrtle Manor in your presentation, and you said that a developer might be apprehensive to go through conditional because they're unsure that the expenses they incur would even be approved by the board. Right? That is totally reasonable and understandable. But Myrtle Manor was one of the first ones that we did through a legislative process as conditional. And as we were going through that process, it allowed the developer to speak to Board of Commissioners independently before spending a lot of money on site plans to see what kinds of things we're looking for. The planning department and town staff can give them guidance based on what the board has approved in the past. And so I think the Myrtle Manor, which was a really big one, commercial on 55, by the time that came to us up here, yes, the public had a lot of questions about that one. That was earlier this year, I think. And the conditional process that allowed us to discuss with each other and express to that developer early on, these are what the concerns are going to be. So try to address that as you're developing it. There was a long discussion, but I think at the end of that night, most people felt pretty good about approving that project. You listed several other surrounding projects too. I'm not aware. Do we have apartments over there? I don't think we do. But I think most of the other projects you have surrounding it were all approved with conditions. Do you know if that's true?
That may very well be true, and that's absolutely fine. My goal here this evening was to show you and demonstrate as best I could why the concern about the conditional use process, and I get you're married to that. I get it. You made it pretty clear on our Zoom call. But the reality for you is that your ordinance exists. It has an opportunity for requesting a straight rezoning.
Yep.
And my goal here was to say to you, this is why you don't need to be so incredibly afraid of a straight rezoning, because you have a gentleman here who's lived here his whole life. His intention is not to do anything harmful to Anger. And showed you the process. I've showed you the plan. And so what does that mean for Andrew? All of the impacts that you're concerned about, we can address in multiple different venues, including your TRC, your permitting, your subdivision review and approval, and not to mention state approvals for the roadways, for the road widening, for the wetlands. It goes on, right? So you're not giving up the ghost here by approving a straight rezoning. You're
Right.
just not. And that was my goal here, was to say to you, this is what we're trying to do. These are what we believe the impacts are. And
Yeah.
and again, to plead for an approval, because it is consistent and reasonable with your ordinance and with your future land use plan.
Well, that's not what staff or the planning board found.
And
Majority
and
of
my,
planning
my
board.
job is to give you some additional perspective for
Okay.
my client and for his benefit. Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. I'm sorry to have interrupted you. Did you wanted to hear
I
all?
wanted to hear the history.
Why don't we hear from the public?
I will speak to what I know
Okay.
and what I've been told. I've been involved on this project probably for about the last year, but my understanding, it's been going on much longer than that. My understanding from Donald is that there was another firm that was involved and generated a land plan. It was a combination of single-family homes and townhomes. He met with somebody who was on staff at that time, and he was directed to go that route. He did not want to provide townhomes on this property. He wanted it to be a straight, single-family development. But he was directed again by somebody in the town who worked on staff at the time that it would be beneficial to add townhomes for approval by the town moving forward. So he did all that, made those changes. Unfortunately, I think the person who was involved in that original plan passed away, and that's when he brought me on board and to the project. I met with planning staff and went over the project and understood that at that time that, because I had redrawn I was going to redraw the layout for just single-family lots, but I was told in the planning meeting that we should add some things that thought that the town council would want to see. Open space, amenities, things of that nature. After discussing it with Donald, we basically put the project on the table for a little while because didn't want to go that route. And we really didn't know where we were going. It just so we took our time. In future discussions with planning, we learned that was no longer the case as far as having to be required to do townhomes, amenity areas, and the like. And we were allowed to go in our direction, or I should say Donald's direction, for just straight single-family development. It was advised to go conditional zoning. That is the truth, and we were advised on that. But that's not what Donald wanted to do. He knew that there were going to be additional expenses that were going to be absorbed at his cost, not knowing whether there would be any kind of approval, and he didn't want to spend that kind of money when you didn't know what you were going to get. So he said, let's go straight rezoning, and I'm willing to take my chances because it was right for him and what he wanted to do on his piece of property. It's an allowed zoning within the town. It's his right, is the way I see it, for him to make this request to the town. It's your right, obviously, to deny. It's really pretty simple in my world. This is either something that's good for the town or it's bad for the town. You get to decide. I mean, I do these often, and I'm really marvel at sometimes the opposition or the passion that gets into these things from a planning staff or town councils, from residents. I mean, it's personal because it's your town. But what he's asking for, the man has lived here his whole life. He's a good man. He really is. I worked with him for a long time. And I hope you as people know that he's a good man and he's honest and he'll do what he says. To me, that's the biggest thing about Donald. He's as honest as the day is long. If he tells you he's going to do something, he's going to do it. So I have no idea. I have no doubt that he's going to do a really nice project. I support him in that, and I hope you do too.
Yeah. Do
I
you
really
know
do.
if he's going to sell the property?
No, he plans to develop it.
Well, we don't know if he's going to sell it.
He's right here. You can ask him.
Or well,
I mean, it's always been told to me
right.
that he and Billy, who I understand is his cousin, that they want to develop this property
Yeah.
for single family.
And while I could appreciate that, the reason I asked that is to say that we can't consider that this is what he is going to do to it, because he may sell it, he may, God forbid, pass away, and the property could change hands. And at that time, it is R6 to anybody to do whatever they choose with that parcel, whether or not it's the drawing you've presented us or not. You know, the decision we make in this case, where it's simply a straight R6 rezoning, opens the door to any possibility, or at least that's what I have to consider to be responsible in thinking on something like this.
The only thing I'm going to add, the only thing he's allowed to do is what is permitted by your code.
Right.
So it's not like he can do anything he wants to do. The way I looked at your use table, townhomes, apartments, high density uses, he cannot do that. It's not a permitted use. They are conditional zoning requirements in the town per your UDO. So he can't just go out there and do what he wants.
Sure.
I just wanted to make that clear.
Right. And I wish we had a TIA on this one, because this one, you probably don't know because you don't live here, but a lot of us drive past this property all the time. It's at the top of a hill. The speed limit goes to 55 miles an hour. There's no sidewalks, nor do we have the ability to put sidewalks in, as far as I know, because it's a DOT road. So in this case, you know, it really would be helpful to have a TIA because of where this parcel is located. We don't know what the traffic impact would be. We don't know that we can have turn lanes to get people out of the flow of traffic when that hill is crested at 55 if you're going the speed limit. I know people enter the town at this property a lot faster than that. But that's why it's concerning, is because this is not required, understandably so, nor should he be forced to do that. It's not what I'm saying. But it's something that, you know, as elected officials to represent the people, is something that we have to consider when we're thinking about something like this.
Well, for the record, I have traveled Highway 210 often.
Yeah.
I have a stepson, his wife, and 3 grandchildren who live in Anger.
Awesome.
Off of Highway 210.
Yeah.
So I know it well.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
It is good.
It is. I mean, I like it here.
And I'm glad you do. I'm glad you do. You should live where you want to be.
Are there any other questions for the presenter? I've been talking a lot, and I'm sorry. If you guys have anything, we might come back to you if there are other questions, but thank you.
I'm here. And I appreciate the questions. I really do.
Of course. These are all things I have to consider. So, all right, let's do public comment. So this is legislative. You don't have to be sworn in to make a public comment tonight in this hearing. So please join us if you don't mind, but we'll need you to step to the microphone. Otherwise, people can't hear you and it's not recorded.
Hey guys, I'm Jennifer Sloan, 27 Wilma Street. If Jack Marley Park is 1,000 yards from this property, I'm 500. I know the Gregorys. My son is very well acquainted with Mr. Warren and with Kenny Horton, and even Mr. Gregory himself. I know they're good people. I have a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old. We live in the corner of Wilma and 210. Last year, a motorcyclist was hit at that intersection, thrown into my yard, and died. It's personal for me. My kids are young drivers. It's terrifying currently. You throw a residential neighborhood right there, and it's even scarier. These are my children's lives. There's a price for that, and I can't measure it. The TIA matters. It really matters to me. I'm not against R6. Let me be clear. I'm not against that. I worry about the people who drive that road every day. Literally, I am their neighbor. And I do love this family, I really do. But I love mine, and I love my kids, and it's terrifying to think that motorcyclist died in my yard and that could be my own children.
Thank you.
Mayor and Commissioners, my name is Eric Julian, 1490 Benson Road. I'm a member of the Anger Planning Board, so I was one of the people that voted to approve denying it. So some of the things I had written out before the meeting have already been said multiple times, so I'll try to zoom past.
Sorry, I talked a lot.
So, it's all right. I guess so, and I added some notes since then. So one of the things, so I believe what was presented by Ms. Scott, I don't know, seemed somewhat disingenuous to me in her appeal. It seemed like it was, I don't know, disingenuous, I'll just say that. So for those who might not know, the current zoning is R10, which allows plots or lots as small as 10,000 square feet, and that was shown before, which if you're not familiar with the size acreage, that's about 1/4 of an acre. R6 would allow 6,000 square feet, which is slightly less than 1/7 of an acre. And since the zoning request is for more dense zoning, it can only be assumed that the lots would be smaller than 10,000 square feet. As was mentioned before, the owner can request conditional zoning, but that's not what's being asked. And I think this was already said too, but the apartment villages near there are closer to R6, but they also require open spaces, which would not be required for straight zoning. Let's see. There are no R6 zone properties in the Anger ETJ, so this stands out as being unusual. And since it's in the ETJ, this high density property would pay no taxes, although I think it was mentioned that they would be willing to get it annexed, but it's not currently annexed, so if it passed, they wouldn't be required to do that. Also, when the owner went before the planning board back in August, September timeframe, they mentioned that they had mentioned multiple times that they had a vision for what they'd like to do with the property, but when I asked what it was, they seemed to be caught off guard. So I was glad to actually see what their plan is, although the plan, they don't actually have to stick with the plan because it's not conditional or anything. It's a straight zoning. Let's see. And yeah, and what was shown here was not what was shown to the planning board. So we didn't get this presentation. Yeah, so, and all that to say, so, I mean, I'm pro growth and I'm not against dense housing, but also want smart growth. And as a member of the Anger Planning Board, I request that you deny the rezoning at this time. Thanks.
Thanks, sir.
I just have a quick question. Do you want me to repeat my name and all that?
I got it.
So, from what I understand, we don't have to have a TAA because there's only 64 lots that they're applying for right now. But it's only a piece of the entire property. So, if, 5 years from now they come back and ask to develop the second part of the land, it's also only 64 houses. Now we've added 128 houses and we still don't have a TAA because it's not required. Is that possible for that to happen?
I believe it's possible.
Okay. Just wondering.
Yeah.
My name is Jeannie Ellington, and I live at 565 East McIver Street. The property is adjacent to the 16 acres that's being considered for rezoning tonight, and I'm here to object to the rezoning. For those of you that are not familiar with my property, it contains a pond. In 1970, there was a child, an 11-year-old child, that died in a pond in Anger. And then just 2 weeks ago, a 6-year-old died in a pond in Zebulon. My pond borders this tract of land, and it presents a very real danger of a child drowning if this rezoning is approved. Children are curious, and if they live near my property, they're going to transport to the pond. In addition, my property contains a well, which provides irrigation water for my yard and garden. The well and pond could easily be contaminated and possibly ruined if the runoff from the hardscapes is in proper buffers and protections are not required. The property up for rezoning drains towards me. When it rains, the water is currently absorbed into the land. As housing developments arise, the farmland is replaced with houses and pavement, producing excessive runoff. That runoff will go into the waterways, ponds, and wells, may cause erosion, contamination, and sedimentation, which can harm aquatic plants and fish by blocking sunlight and depleting oxygen levels. Therefore, I am requesting the following. Number 1, a landscape berm 15 feet from my property line, not only to serve as a buffer, but also to reduce runoff into my pond and well. Number 2, an 8-foot tall wrought iron fence along the entire property line to prevent the very real risk of a child drowning. Both requests are to be built and maintained by the property owners or their association at their expense and must meet my satisfaction. You know, it's like when the Petosphere water tank was done, it was done for aesthetics. I like things to look good too, and I want that fence to look good at my property. The Andrew Planning Board reviews planning rezoning requests, and they make the recommendation. We've already talked about that. And then Jeff Jones, we've talked about that. What I wanted to bring out is that in his report, he stated the following: the current town board and past town board, including members of the town board, have directed staff to discourage and even eliminate R6 zoning. He further states high density is not compatible with the land use plan. He states that the requested zoning to R6 would have an unknown impact to the existing infrastructure. In the town, there are many old water and sewer lines. So if this request is approved, it's going to put additional demand on those water line and sewer lines. What's going to happen when we don't have enough water to meet water and sewer capacity to meet our needs in Angier? The North Carolina Office of State Budget Management reported that from April 1st, 2020 to July 1st, 2024, Angier had a 46% increase in population. That's almost double the population in 4 years. So here we are at the end of 2025, so that number will certainly be higher a year and a half later. Mr. Jones also stated that the typical R6 type neighborhoods have included transportation analysis. We've talked about that. One of the things I wanted to bring up was that NC 210 from North Carolina 55 to Lipscomb Road is not on the horizon for widening or making any improvements until 2050. That's 25 years from now. And you look at the traffic now and how bad it is in Angier. What's it going to be in 25 years? Any vote in contradiction to these findings, particularly without addressing the documented safety, drainage, and infrastructure concerns, creates a foreseeable risk of harm and liability. I am placing both the applicant and the town on notice. If this rezoning is approved and a child drowns or contamination occurs due to this decision, those who voted for it will have done so with awareness of the dangers and against the professional recommendations of your own staff. This is called foreseeable negligence. And we've talked about the statement of consistency. Mr. Jones has said that the proposed zoning is not compatible with the town's land use plan, and it could potentially have an unreasonable impact on the surrounding community and harm the public health, safety, and general welfare. And he had put the request denied, and he put that in capital letters. So I encourage you to vote no on this rezoning request. Depending on your action, you, the town board, must complete the statement of consistency as mentioned previously. If you approve it tonight, how in the world can you honestly say that this zoning will meet the current land use plan when it does not? I'm not here to threaten anybody. I only want to remind you that this process is governed by North Carolina law and that public confidence depends on integrity and transparency. Every commissioner's vote tonight will reflect this board, how this board serves the public good or private interest. The vote is not just about rezoning. It's about whether this town's leadership stands for the people it serves or with the privileged few who can afford to hire attorneys to determine how to come in and bend the rules. Thank you for your time and your consideration. I ask that I be able to give a copy of my notes to the clerk so she can include it in the minutes.
Thank you.
My name's Junior Price. I live at 8173 NC 210 North. You know, I sit and listen to this, and I see people coming up here talking. God knows I got the utmost respect for Miss Ellington and her latest husband, RH, but if I'm not mistaken, your pumping well sets on Donald's land. I'm pretty sure you. Okay. Okay. I have been on that side. I've been on this side, and it started back years ago on the planning board. I got a lot of things I want to say tonight, but one, Mr. Mayor and board, I know Mr. Blake, and I know he's very, very educated with all this stuff, but your planning board needs training. They needed it when I was on it. It's hard to get people to come on any board, but when you got people making these kind of decisions, good or bad, the gentleman that came up a while ago, he said he didn't know they were going to, it's not his play, he can't ask that question. He should know that. They need training. They don't have it. Mr. Blake, he's got it. I don't know about Bobby, but they need training when they're put on these planning boards. Number one. Number two, the TIA you're talking about, it's not required. How is that TIA working out at school up there where we have the biggest traffic problem in Anger? You know, years ago, things was let go because of who you were and your position in this town. You know, when everybody leaves after the board meetings, when we're sitting in the closed sessions talking, you know, I'm bound to not say certain things, even though it happened when I was on the board. But, you know, just because you're a Johnson or a Gregory in this town, you shouldn't be treated any different than anyone else. Mr. Gregory right there tried to build a mini storage, and it took him forever to get it, and he had to go through hell to get it. Jimmy Johnson, when he bought the development over there by Catherine's Retreat, he had to do things that someone else that developed Catherine's Retreat didn't have to do. Cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it because his last name's Johnson. Donald had an issue a few years ago. A few $1,000s would have got the town out of the situation he was in. Well, it wound up costing us over $1 million because they pushed him up against the wall and he said, I'd had enough. I come up here 2 or 3 weeks ago and I said something and everybody gave me applause. I didn't ask for it because I thought things was being personal. I think a lot of the people in this room tonight and some of the board members in this, they're taking this too personal. Your words means a lot, Bob. And you influence a lot of people in this town. Some of the questions you asked tonight I didn't think was appropriate. It has nothing to do with what's going on tonight. They're asking for a straight R6, you know. But I'm sick and tired of the Gregorys and Johnsons and certain people in this town getting a runaround. I mean, and it's happening. The people that's been on this board for a while, that's been involved and knows anything about what's going on in here in the last few years. Guys, it's happening every time they try to do something. You know? And I just think it's unfair. I'm not for it. I'm not against it. But I think just because your last name don't mean you have to go through all of this. I've seen, we've done business in here with bigger projects than this with half the time it's taken for this. You know? And it's ridiculous. It's because his last name is Gregory and his last name's Johnson. You know? Jimmy Johnson was told he built a building on the other side of town because he was told his building didn't look good enough to be in the city limits of Andrew. Am I lying, Jimmy? I'm just telling you, that's the kind of crap that's been going on here, Mr. Mayor, for years. And it needs to stop. It needs to stop on both sides. It needs to stop from up here, and it needs to stop from in here. You know, it just needs to stop. Okay?
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. Thank you. I'm Alan Coates, 131 Wilma Street in Angier. I'm 68 years old. My family has lived in Angier, and I have too all that time. My father lived down the street a half a mile with 11 people in a two-bedroom house, and his great-grandfather before that. So, yeah, my family has been, and most of Angier is that way, and we are very excited to be a part of Angier. I have notes written here, but I don't know that I'm going to even look at much of it because I'm so confused now about all of this, because I have sat and served with two of you up there before, and I keep thinking, we got dumped a lot of information tonight that's not been available until tonight. And I think if you'd had that information, a lot of questions would have been answered and you would have known, but suddenly we get a plot plan. And do they have to hold to that? No, they don't. We would hope that they would. But what I'm seeing here is, in my world where I sat with you before, the difference in an R6 and an R6 conditional is really about like that. I don't know where suddenly all of this monumental money spent to do it is going to happen. All we were doing in the conditionals were protecting the surroundings. We could say we want a berm because those developed homes have been sitting there. Yes, abutting this along Wilma Street. I have statistics, but I mean Pleasant Street, yeah. Those 8 homes along that whole street have been there for built back in the 50s and 60s. They are R10s. So, yes, the land use plan put it at R10s. Now, we seem to be wanting to disregard the land use plan. You're going to vote on another one tonight. But my point being, for those homes that were there as R6s, R10s, and now we want to change it to an R6. I am not opposed to an R6. I think you all know that, and I've said it before. I'm not at all. They're going to build. We want them to build. We need them to build in order to increase our population in our town, to get up to a level that big businesses will come to us. And we certainly want that. So let me be clear about this. I'm not opposing an R6 zoning. I'd like for you to hold on to an R10 for those 8 homes that sit there, because the land could be cleared right up to their backyard. And this conditional allows you to say, and we did it many times, LaRue and Jim, where we said, yeah, we want you to build, but they need a berm back there and a blockage between, suddenly before they have a totally empty backyard. We did it over and over again. And in my world, this is a simple request, and it has nothing to do with a Gregory family or a Johnson family. It's holding on to what we have been doing. And I think it's in keeping with what you guys have been doing in the last 2 years. So in my world, an R6 conditional and R6, they're not that great a difference in money. What we've done in the R6 conditionals is ask for things like a little bit more public space and checking out something for the kids, and berms and things in the back that butt other lands. I think, and had you been given that plot plan, I came in here in a panic going, if I were a developer, I'd build every inch of that I possibly could for every dime that I could, because that's what business is about. But because nobody would give you anything, I know you were confused, and I'm now confused. It's like, wow, I'd grant that as an R6 conditional right here tonight, today. but it wasn't given before today. And I don't know why. It could have been. We can sit here and argue what planning person didn't direct them to do that, did. You know, I had in here that I know in minutes from 2020 and 24, planning directors were. I remember sitting in a meeting where we told planning guys, we want these conditionals. We don't want these R6s. I'm thrilled. And whoever would direct them to build apartments, I don't know. I'm like in shock that even occurred, because I'm thrilled to see that there aren't any single townhouses or apartments. Because right now, if we didn't build or approve another plot, we have over 3,000 approved homes that have yet to be built out. So we've already got them on the books. So to not see any more apartments or townhomes, and listen, my family made a living off of apartments. So I'm not when I say that, we don't need any more, and there are tons of them on the plan. Part of what's being said here tonight is, and we can all believe in faith that what we say is, but as he said, it doesn't mean that they can't change the plan. Somebody else might get involved and not have the dedication that the Gregories do. But by doing an R6 conditional, you can watch those simple things. I mean, certainly, they're going to build it. We want them to build it. But we also want to take care of the structure of the town. And yes, as someone said, they have that bypass is not going to be built on that side of town until 250. And the traffic, yes, I live over there. It is crazy. But they're going to build the houses. We want them to build them. I'm just saying, look out for those 8 homes along that stretch that have been there for 40, 50 years, and help them with a berm, a buffer, because I think you'd want it in your own home if you lived along there. And I think what we're asking here is something simple. I'm just saying, and I know we turned down, I remember one behind Pope and Pope, which we all turned down because we wanted conditional. They came back because we just wanted the buffering. We wanted a little control over and control's the wrong word to use. We wanted a little bit of structure in protection about what we were doing in the town. And that's what we've got to look out for. I think tonight could be a very monumental vote. I know, because we've got new people coming in. We're setting a precedent for where we're heading, what we're doing. We've got people that are leaving. You know, this may be one of the last things they ever vote on. But I do believe if we all sit back and think it through logically, we're not telling them not to build. Could we just ask you to do a few things? And since you said 64, however many, hopefully you'll stay in that world. So by doing R6 conditional, that's what you get to do. Enough. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nick Campbell. I live at 101 Wilma Street in Andrew, so very close to this stuff, I guess. Jeez, sorry. I'm probably going to come at this from a slightly different angle than everyone else. I'm new resident here, unlike probably most everyone in here. Really like the area. And, you know, one of the things that attracted my wife and I to this area is the visual appeal of the area and the way it seemed to be laid out. And as everything needs to grow, and I understand that, I think one thing that I see happening, you know, I travel for my job, I see the entire country all the time. And what is happening throughout the entire country, and seems to starting to happen here, is it's turning into the United States of Generica, right? All these subdivisions look the same. Everything is let's build it as quick as we can, as cheaply as we can. You know, you see these subdivisions were built 20 years ago and they're falling apart because they weren't built quality, even though they'll claim it's being built quality. And you know, you can roll through these neighborhoods, and like the neighborhood that I'm living in over here on Wilma Street, it's got character, right? And there's other areas like the street that runs right down here that you live on. Those houses have character. You know, those lots may not be, maybe there are 10 lots, like he was saying, the street behind where we live. But, you know, they're brick houses. They're built 60 years ago, and they're still standing, and like, you know, everyone looks a little different, and you can't reach out and touch the neighbor's house out your window, you know. I mean, it might as well be a townhome or apartment. It's not, when you only have 6 feet of space between them, you know, humans are mammals and need territory. You know, that's where a lot of our problems come from, unfortunately. And so when you start cramming people on top of each other, on top of each other, on top of each other, you start creating tension. So, like, in my opinion, people can still make plenty of money if everything was zoned to R20 or R30. Like, that's what I'd like to see personally. You want to build? It's R20. Has to be brick or stone, you know? I mean, you know, but I mean, that stuff would last, and that would give people space, you know? And would it be more expensive? Sure it would, but if everything was being built like that, maybe it would come down a little bit, you know, because that's how everything was being built. So I live in a dream world. I get it. And what I'm saying is not going to matter at all to this stuff, you know? But I just want to say it because, you know, I hate to see another generic cram as much stuff into a spot as you can. Like, it's an eyesore, you know, it just is. And I think maybe, you know, another thing that I hear people talk about is when you build these subdivisions like this, and they're so poorly built, the people that are buying them right now in 5-10 years, they're going to sell them, or they're just going to start renting them out and move somewhere else. And then people mention like transient stuff, then that starts happening, you know? So I don't think there's a real good look for the future with that kind of thing. But anyway, I think that's kind of what I wanted to say. So obviously I'm against R6, I'm against R10, but I'd rather have R10 than R6.
Well, thank you for sharing those thoughts. And truthfully, I hope you don't feel like it was pointless or you wouldn't be heard. So thank you for sharing them. All right, public comment. Anyone else? I think you're up. Yeah.
All right. Thanks to Amy for acknowledging the residents from Oak Hill that came last week and couldn't come tonight. If we could have got a driver for the van, we'd have had a van full tonight. But I live at 9767 NC 210, directly across the street from the property we're talking about. Alan was exactly right. I'm confused now tonight. What's being presented tonight is not what we understood it to be. I have 65 signatures here of people that are concerned about high density going in across the street. Yeah, we definitely don't want that. And as far as a TIA, I think I would bet that the 64 lots is a guideline, not a rule, because there's other things that come into play on that. You kind of described the traffic situation there, but it's a little more than that. There's a hill and then a swale under a valley behind it, and then another hill. And I think your police chief will verify there's been some really serious accidents there from people going east on 210, wanting to turn left into Oak Hill, and traffic westbound going faster than the allotted speed prior to their hitting these people turning left, because they're down in that low spot, and the people turning left don't see them because it's like in a Roadrunner cartoon. You know, they're making the turn blind to these people coming on. So I know various people in town, including employees there, now go past Oak Hill East, turn into the townhome subdivision there, do a U-turn and come back so they can turn right into Oak Hill. So it definitely needs some attention if we're adding additional traffic coming out onto the road there. It's not just a matter of how many lots there are. It's just adding anything moving slowly with oncoming fast traffic is going to really need some study to avoid those accidents. And they have been some pretty serious ones too. I'm a big proponent of people being able to do what they want with their property and things they own. But I also come from Houston, Texas, which is the largest city in the world without zoning. It's a strange situation, and they run into some difficulties. They've had to work around not having zoning. So getting used to zoning is an ongoing process for me. So especially when your chairman came up and talked about rejecting the denial or denying the rejection, that's the kind of thing, it takes a little while to actually get the concept down of what's going on with that. But what I gathered was the people that we have charged with protecting our interests through zoning have recommended not making this change. And the people that came up to speak for it, I didn't get the best feeling from the things they were saying. Somebody questioned your questioning of them. I thought your questions were just outstanding. I mean, they really helped illustrate it for some of us that haven't been on boards before. If the town is doing anything to discriminate against anybody because of their last name, that is wrong. Except Jimmy Johnson, you can discriminate against him.
He doesn't have a dog in this fight.
No, Jimmy's a good guy. He's my friend. But that certainly would be completely wrong, and I don't want that. But you do have a process in place, and I think that process needs to be followed. So it's gone through the process. Sounds like there may be some confusion, so this may need to be deferred a little bit, and deferring it till the next full board in wouldn't be the worst thing either. But if we were to go forward tonight and in the face of all this opposition, the vote was still to ignore the recommendation of the board and the feelings of the residents, that would not seem right. And that would leave people to look for conclusions that made sense. The only things that could make sense from there was improper influence. And that would be, a sad thing for Andrew. Thank you for your time. Who gets this petition?
What's that? I'll hand it to the clerk if you don't mind. Thank you, sir.
I have to lower this down. I wish I was this tall.
I think you could pull it out too and just hold it if it's easier. There you go. I don't even know how to use that thing.
Maybe. Oh, you're so sweet. Like, who is this? Okay. Oh, thank you. Not that I like a microphone, but can you hear me now? All right. So I'm Christine Barquet, 123 South Pleasant Street. I'm one of the 8 houses that Alan alluded to, and I'm very happy to live where I do. I am coming before you asking you to say no to the rezoning request, not because I don't want development either. I think it's important. I know it's important. I'm asking for thoughtful development. I'm asking for smart development. I'm asking for more. I'm trying. Is that better? Wow, I really don't like the microphone, do I? Okay. All right, people. Oh, Bailey. Okay, so better? Sounds good. Okay. So I'm asking for smart, thoughtful development, not asking for a blanket rezoning request. That is my concern, which I've heard a lot going around. It sounds like from what was presented tonight that there's confusion between the requester as to is a blanket request what's in front of us, or is this a conditional request? It seems like what was presented was the latter. And I too am concerned that this all came out this evening with no kind of prep for anyone who was concerned. We also didn't know when they weren't going to be here last time we all came to the meeting, and we didn't know they weren't going to be here, and we didn't have any chance to prepare yet again for whatever they were presenting. It just doesn't feel very good. I heard the lawyer say, and forgive me, I don't remember her name, not trying to be rude, but I heard her say benign, insignificant. The development is going everywhere. Pittsboro, Chapel Hill, Cary, lots about Cary. I don't live in Cary. I live here because I love it here. I love the small town feel. I realize there's lots of development that's currently been approved and happening. And so I think it's even more important that we don't end up like all of those other places, because I too will leave if that's what happens. I also am concerned with the traffic situation. I'm not going to bring it up again because everyone articulated it perfectly, but I do have witnessed many of those accidents. It scares the hell out of me. And the fact that a TIA, whether it's requested and has to be done or not, why is that not also important to the people who've lived here their whole lives and also have family here? That I don't understand that. In terms of conflict of interest, clearly the Gregory family is very well known. I don't know them at all. I have no vested interest. I've heard he's a very nice person. I would just say that if there is a conflict of interest, the North Carolina General Assembly Chapter 160D for local planning and development says that if there's a conflict of interest, that person needs to recuse themselves when they're voting on any kind of rezoning amendment. So I would just like to point that out. And so I ask for you to deny the request this evening.
Thank you.
Now that I got the microphone right. All right. Hi, everybody. My name's Fran Bishop. I live at 236 Van Winkle Street in Lillington. I used to live in Andrew. My husband lives, as most of you know, in Oak Hill. I'm there 3 to 4 times a week, making a left turn into Oak Hill. You're taking your life in your hands. I've almost been hit probably a dozen times. It's easier at night, believe it or not, because you can actually see headlights coming. You can't gauge how fast those people are coming over that hill. So number one, I just spoke to Mr. Gregory. I'd never met him, and I mentioned that there's no left turn lane, and he said one of the things that he would make sure happened was that there was a left turn lane into there. That just made me really happy, because we don't plan on moving him anytime soon, because he's really, really happy there. And I think that would be a huge, huge improvement if this were to go forward. But I do have a couple questions. Number one, on the online version of the agenda, it shows the property owner as Castleberry Farm and the applicant as Peter Knosson. So is the engineer the person that's the applicant, or is the property owner the applicant? That just confused me. I've read a lot of contracts in my life, and I've never seen the engineer of the property as the applicant. So maybe we could clarify that for me. That's just me, just notice things. The other thing is, out of all these stars, I'm looking on the online one. So all these stars, I'm assuming, is that complete 16 acres, if I'm not mistaken. Literally directly across the street, we've talked about Oak Hill. We've talked about all the problems we've had with the traffic. Concerns, I shouldn't say problems. Concerns about traffic, accidents, and all of that. But I have another concern. And that is that according to the state, Castleberry Farms is delinquent on filing their state annual reports. which means a couple things. They can't do any kind of business until that's cleared up. And that's just a few days from dissolving that business entity called Castleberry Farms. Just something I'm pointing out. Another issue that I have is that I believe that LaRue Holly needs to recuse herself from voting because the Gregorys donated to her husband's campaign.
Exactly. And what financial benefits did I gain from that?
How would I know? I don't live at your house.
Well,
This is my time, LaRue.
Okay, I can assure you that I did not
I
gain any financial
honestly,
gain.
I'm just stating facts.
And
I
I'm stating
believe
facts
that.
as well.
I thought we talked earlier about not interrupting people. Just a
Go ahead, Ms.
rules
Bishop.
for thee and not me. Okay, my point is that I believe since the Gregorys, and I'm sure they have every reason to be close friends with them, and they donated to a whole lot of entities, not just Ryan, but I believe because she has had a personal interest with that person that she should recuse herself from voting. That's my personal appearance. I think maybe we need to wait another month when we have our new board in here that might be a little bit less biased. And I'm just throwing that out there as a thought that maybe we should postpone this one more month. Nothing against Mr. Gregory, nothing against the Johnsons, except Jimmy, because Galen said I had to say that. Jimmy's the only person that, Clarence would have a problem with, but we don't. But I believe that given the information that we all just got tonight, that one of two things should happen. Maybe we should work it where we get a conditional approval, where they submit a conditional approval. And number two, where we have the new board vote and present conditions that they can live with, and then try this again. Because I think if this passes tonight, it's very, very obvious to me that it's kind of like a slap on the way out the door. That's how it feels to me, as someone who lived in Anger and left. But that's all I had to say, except to say that I made some notes during Ms. Scott's talk. She used words like nominal, benign, very little impact, entirely reasonable, been here since the 1800s. The board is incredibly afraid of straight rezoning. To me, that's kind of talking down to the residents that live here now. Just because we haven't lived here since 1800 doesn't mean that our opinion is any more or less valuable. I have nothing against the Gregorys. I believe we need much more diverse housing for lower income people. I believe that. Absolutely with my heart. I believe that. And I think what that will do is that'll put more of those people on our boards, and that will all across the board improve our town, or your town, my former town, my husband's town. So anyway, that's really all I came up here to say, but I think I made my point. Okay, thank y'all.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. Dan, really quick, if you don't mind, just to weigh in on some of the issues she brought up. The Castleberry Farms business entity, is that relevant to this tonight? I don't
see how it would be. This is a straight rezoning legislative decision by this board as to what zoning classification this piece of property should have. That's really the only issue for the board tonight.
All I'm saying is this says dissolution of the Castleberry Farms due to not filing their state report. So the annual report hasn't been filed. Therefore, this entity will no longer exist. It's been filed. Has been filed? Okay. Well, as of today, this entity.
I still don't.
This is on the
I certainly understand, but I think when we're dealing with the legislative rezoning, the decision is, should it be zoned this or should it be zoned that? And I'm not sure that would be a relevant factor in making that decision.
Thank you, Dan.
So we could have a contract with someone that doesn't exist.
Well, this would not be a contract. This would be a legislative rezoning.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up.
And then secondly, forgive me, she brought up, do you see any merit to LaRue needing to recuse herself because of campaign donations?
No,
okay.
that would be a totally separate issue. That this is you would only recuse yourself if there was a direct financial impact from this vote.
Okay.
And I don't see that.
Okay, thank you. I just, I wanted
Thank you.
to clear that up. Yes, ma'am.
Kathy Horton.
Direct or indirect.
I live at 9820 NC Highway 210. I'm right beside the property. The problem is, you can't wait till next meeting. I'm gonna be honest with you, Mayor. At first, I didn't like you, but I like you. Why would people?
I've been hearing that a lot lately.
No, people just hide behind somebody else.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna be honest with you. At first, I didn't know. I hear stuff,
Mhm.
But I like you, and you being the mayor, you have ethics too.
Mhm.
And for you to put it off another meeting, I wouldn't do that if I was you,
Mhm.
because it would get worse. And I'm just saying, because I don't think that will work. And LaRue her husband has nothing to do with this.
Mhm.
The pond, Donald's got to put a fence at somebody else's yard. That's ridiculous. It's not his land; it's her land. You can't make him do that. You just can't. He's an honest man. If he dies, when he's going to heaven, he's a Christian. He's got 2 sons. Nobody's going to buy it from the boys. I mean, in low income, how do you know it's going to be low income that moves in there? How? You don't know that. One day, some people might be low income that are rich now. Who knows?
Mhm.
The way the world's going. But I would recommend that you give him the permit and not put it off for another meeting, because that's not right. You know that, Mr. Mayor.
Personally, I believe that we owe him an answer tonight. He showed up tonight, so I agree with you. Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, would the applicant give you an opportunity to speak again after hearing that before we close the public hearing?
Just to clarify a couple things just to rebut. With regard to the traffic impacts and the concern about NC Highway 210, after hearing what I've heard tonight, whether you find me to be disingenuous or not, the reality is that this project would actually improve your condition on NC 210. I have an email here from Lee Hines, who is the district engineer for the Division of Highways NCDOT. Many of you may know him if you've done any development work here, and he says exactly this in the email. You can expect the department to require turning lanes on NC 210 for the proposed driveway. That is the reality for this project. Donald is aware of it, the engineer is aware of it, which is why it was addressed on that plot plan. And back to the plot plan that everybody seems confused about. The reality of that is that's been in existence for a very long time. It was also provided to town staff. I spoke about it with Mr. Jones myself before our meeting, our Zoom meeting, and very tersely was told, we're not talking about that. So if your folks here didn't see it, it's because it wasn't distributed by the town.
But this is not the same one that we had in our meeting,
It's the same one.
because I brought the one to the meeting.
This is the only one I've ever seen.
Well, that's not true.
Mr. Jones.
There was a previous one that was submitted a couple of years ago through the history. It had townhomes and single-family lots. The one that we saw tonight was the first time I saw it. So this is not true.
Okay, because that's what I thought too, and I wanted to clear that up.
Come up to them if you're going to talk. Come up to the microphone just so we get it on record.
So, again, this is all I've ever known. This is what's been in existence since the beginning. This is what Mr. Knosen tells me he presented at planning board. And again, I know Mr. Jones has seen it because he said to me, that's irrelevant to me. I'm not looking at that.
I have not
So,
seen it. On record, I have not seen it.
okay,
All right.
well,
You
whatever.
can't prove that I've seen it, and I have not seen it.
Well, this is not a judicial
All right.
proceeding, so I'm
But
not
you
in
brought
it up.
in the issue of doing proof.
I appreciate both of your comments on that. The most important thing to me was that I was pretty sure that I hadn't seen that one, because the ones we were reviewing in our meeting, which you were there for,
Was the only
were
one that
different
I've
than
ever
that.
seen.
All right, and that's just to
When
say
we were
that I
talking,
hadn't
we
seen that
we
one.
both agreed there were 64 units on the
No, we
table.
didn't.
I'm pretty sure it was
looking at the
70
thing.
We
something.
were looking at the previous plot plan
Well,
that had townhomes on it.
Then that
And
was
we
the-
asked, is 74, 75 homes were listed on that. Is that still,
No, it was 64.
that's not even something we can consider when we are approving a straight rezone.
It's all.
It's not what the property is proposed to be. It's whether or not we think that space can hold an R6 versus an R10.
Right.
That's the discussion, not what
And
it
to
will be.
finalize on that point, I think I've demonstrated what the constraints of that property are with the plan that we've presented, whether anybody saw it or didn't see it. The reality for this property is that that's what we can do on it with an R6. And much of what's been talked about here tonight is simply that the neighbors are in the same stance with an R10. So again, I'll just ask that you consider this under your ordinance as a consistent and reasonable use, and that Mr. Gregory be given the opportunity to develop this property the way he sees fit. We're asking for the straight R6. I appreciate all the comments about the conditional uses, but again, the processes that you have in place will allow you to put some constraints on this property as it moves forward in the event he's approved tonight in a subdivision process, in your TRC process, in your permitting process, DOT, DEQ, and otherwise. So thank you for the opportunity to be heard.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the applicant and his attorney and engineer too for having answers to all of these questions for us. I know it was a lot of questions, so thank you guys very much for being willing to answer that. And I want to thank the public too. You know, I observed very well thought out, calm comments from everybody here tonight that I don't think got out of hand. I think everything was respectful, and so I thank you for that. Before I close the public hearing, are there any other comments? Yes, sir. This is what public hearing is for, so.
I just want to address something that I heard the attorney just say. If I heard it correctly, she said that whether it was R10 or R6, the neighbors would be in the same situation. So R10, same situation.
Thank you. Any other comment tonight? Yes, ma'am.
I would love to hear discussion among the commissioners because they haven't really said anything about the topic.
Well, for the purpose of the public hearing, do any of the commissioners have any questions for the public, the applicant?
No.
All right. With that, I'm going to close the
Can I make
public.
a comment then?
Well, yeah, of course.
Okay. So with this being, so y'all can hear me now. You know, the bypass actually comes within the next 2 years. It'll be completed.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to eliminate a lot of the traffic going to 10 and 55. So, do you all have a crystal ball? I'm just saying what DOT has told us. No, I don't either. But I rely on the tools that we were given, and DOT has stated that it's going to alleviate some of the traffic concerns that we have in this town. That's why they did the bypass. Me personally, I think when they do the bypass, we're not going to have as much traffic. And this is my opinion. Okay, I don't think we're going to have as much traffic as you all anticipate. Okay, so that's what I want to state. I'll just leave it as that. I don't want this to get out of hand.
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I hope that that's true, that the bypass will alleviate a lot of traffic, especially for 55. And certainly a measurable amount on 210 that comes into town for that traffic that intends to go north or south on 55. I don't see how the bypass will affect that direction on 210 because I can't see where a car that's traveling that way on 210 would use the bypass in some way to avoid that part of 210. Yes, we're still in public hearing, so.
Not exactly, relevant to the whole what we're hearing for, but it's relevant to the bypass and how it may help or improve or not that 210. I'd encourage anybody to, because I didn't really know what was going on with the bypass, and so I went to. They have an office. If anybody doesn't know, it's a plaza with Dollar General is and Compare Foods and. Rawls Church Road. they're at the office at the very end of the building. They're there every day, Monday through Friday. And they was super nice. And they got this wall with it. They took all the drawings and put them on the wall. It's like, it blows your mind. But anyway, I was having trouble focusing on where it comes out and where it goes. And, you know, as a citizen, I just wanted to know what's it going to do, good or bad, in between. And the guy was so nice. So anybody wants to know, don't take it from anybody. I don't think there's any experts in this room about it. So, and not LaRue nor I. But so I would encourage you to go see what it does. And it's going to improve a lot of stuff. But there's going to be getting used to. It's going to have a lot of these. You got to get on the bypass. You're going to get a U-turn, then you get a right turn. But like I said, don't take it from me. He'll explain it to you better than I can. But none of it goes to that part of 210. It pretty much is what a bypass is supposed to do. It bypasses the downtown, and it comes out over, like if you're on 210, go through town, and we get to what is that, James Norris, where it crosses. My one question was, Guy, what happens here? Light, you know? What? He goes, no, you got to get on the bypass. You can't continue down to Lillington. You get on the bypass, you go down whatever amount of feet or yards, a mile, whatever. You turn, there's a left turn lane, you turn around, you got to come back, and then you can continue to Lillington. So that's like the short answer. It's going to improve a lot of stuff, but personally, I don't think it will have a lot of bearing on that section, that's all, because it doesn't touch that section. So, but once again, don't take it from me. Go to look at the maps, and you'll get a good look at it. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if there's no further comment or questions for the applicant or the public, then I will close the public hearing. All right. It says we have to talk about a consistency statement. So, Dan, if you could pull that up again on your computer and maybe give us some guidance on that, we'll discuss, for me at least, a lot of what Mr. Jones had on his staff report for the no's is kind of how I feel, if even only for the safety concern, and not because I believe it would be unsafe, because it's certainly not for me to even know if it would be unsafe or not. But I think that's the problem in this case, is that I don't know if it is safe. And if I had to guess if it was safe, given the accidents and the recent death, and I'm sure there have been other ones in the past too, I would have to presume that it was not a safe piece of 210. And really, for me, aside from, we don't want control. We don't want to control the developers to get them to do what we want to do because we want them to spend extra money as some kind of penance to the way Ainger has been growing. We're not trying to punish new developers. But this board and the board before it, and presumably the future board too, have witnessed what, there was a period when we needed to boom because we wanted commercial. And when we asked them, they said, you guys don't have enough people. We're not going to build a Bojangles here. There's a Bojangles in Fuquay. There's not enough people here to create new Bojangles business that wouldn't take away from the Fuquay. Okay, we get it. So there was a period not too long ago that the strategy for our town was to encourage residential growth. We needed that. When I ran 2 years ago, the undeveloped lots now are over 3,000. When I ran, it was around 4,300 of lots that had been approved and not built. So right there, there's been a lot built just in the last 2 years. I think that our responsibility, our duty to the people that elected us to be here, is to make sure that we do everything in our power that the growth we experience, regardless of density even, in a lot of cases, is that the community is beneficial to the people that are going to live there and the people that surround it and the town at large, really. Not even beneficial, but not detrimental, right? And so, which is why that the board before mine and probably even the board before them, 2 planning directors, 2 other town managers, figured out that the way that we can ensure that new developments are good for our town and not taking away is to do conditions. You know, the conditions allow us, they say they're going to put a turn lane, they say they'll build 64 houses, and that's all great. I mean, you have witnessed us pass several conditional rezonings, some of them that were all townhomes, you know, but when we looked at them, they would say, okay, look, we've heard you guys, and we've got some sidewalks everywhere and some green space and a playground so that the children in this neighborhood don't have to walk down 210 to Jack Marley Park without a sidewalk, as an example. So it's not to say that I want control of developers. It's, you know, I take my job up here very seriously. I know that I joke a lot, and that's because I'm nervous, and that's how I cope with that. But my duty is to make sure that the people who live here now, regardless of if it's been the 1800s or you moved in yesterday, and the people that are going to move into the neighborhoods that are being built, enjoy their life in Angier, feel safe in their neighborhood, just generally be happy. Because in the past, and I'm not saying that's the case in this case, we see developers, national developers, chain developers come in and they build the neighborhoods, or they get a rezone with a professional smiling face here and then sell it to some other guy. And none of what that guy sold us happened because we had no way to ensure that the nice man with the tie in front of us, that we could hold him to what he said, which is why we have leaned heavily on conditional, if only because we could say, thank you for saying that, applicant. We're going to write that here as a condition, and you're going to agree to that. A total house count, or sidewalks, or open space, or playground, or whatever, you know, in a specific case, specific to each neighborhood, whatever would help that development be safe, beneficial, not detrimental. I believe a really common condition we have right now is that regardless of the zoning, you know, conditions kind of almost negate what the zoning is anyway. But to have a high density neighborhood, as an example, in this case, a common condition that we have used is that the lots that are adjacent to the existing neighborhood be built in a similar fashion to that zoning. And that's to say that the homes on South Pleasant Street that are R10, that the homes in this new development would mimic the lot size of that R10 so that we wouldn't have, you know, a clashing of development types back to back in a neighborhood. And that's just an example of thoughtful growth. Whoever thought of that one, whoever thought of how to put that one in writing, I wouldn't have never thought to say, yeah, those should be the same lot size so everybody feels like there's a consistent flow. But a lot of great minds for several years have helped to develop conditions that, you know, relatively inexperienced people that sit up here to represent you could say, yes, oh, that's a great idea, and with a conditional rezoning, we can hold you to that. And if you don't do it, that's it. It's over. You can't do it. So, I don't know. I'm talking a lot. For me, as far as the consistency statement goes, I can't say that it would be safe. I'm not saying that it would not be safe, but I can't say that it would be safe. And I'm done. Sorry.
I want to ask a question.
We'll grab your mic.
Ask a question here.
Yeah.
The street along the development that Mr. Gregory wants to build, sorry. The street along the development that Mr. Gregory wants to build has 8 homes on it. Is that correct? By my count?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, maybe. There's around 8 that abut it.
The
Yeah.
existing homes that are there.
Yeah.
According to his site plan, he's looking at building 7. How is that inconsistent?
Well, the zoning, the minimum size.
But it's not an overwhelming amount of homes going to be abutted up against a street with a certain number of homes. You're not building 30 where there's 5.
Sure.
You're building, there's 8 homes here, you're going to build 7 homes. That's not a big difference.
That would be a fantastic conversation to
But
have in a
that's
conditional
what's on the
rezoning.
plan.
We can't consider that plan, Steve.
We can't see into the future for any plan.
Exactly. He could build 23 units along that. We don't know. That's the problem. In
So
a conditional
we need-
rezone, Steve,
we
we
need to
could say,
stop-
yeah, there is 7 lots, and
Then
I
we
like
need-
that. So
then
let's
we
sign
need to
here.
stop all building until we can continue. Till we
Continue.
have a strict statement of what can and can't be built in our community. We need to stop all development.
Well, that would be the,
If we stop one, we have to stop all.
Well, we're not stopping this. I mean, certainly by right can build houses right now without coming to this board with an R10 lot size just by applying to the planning department. So nobody's
But-
stopping
and-
development.
And he's asking for an adjustment that is within our rules.
Right.
There again, what is the true question? Is it you want development or you don't want development? He's not asking for anything inappropriate, outlandish, going to be crazy. He's asking for similar number of homes as to what's already there. He's demonstrated throughout history of times that he's built homes that he builds a quality home. He's not building trash that's getting put up here and blows up when somebody does something stupid. He's building nice homes. He always has.
But Steve, we cannot consider a rezoning on a parcel based on who the applicant is.
Correct. You can only base it on what he says he's going to
No,
do.
you cannot.
Okay, I don't know what to base it on.
You cannot- there's
base
no
it
way
on-
to-
on what could be potentially allowed in an R6 zoning.
In any case,
I
you
think
have to
he's
take the
within the
applicants out of
rules.
it to be fair across the board, is to not consider who anybody is that applies for something, but more what we are considering.
But
I'm
is
sorry,
that individual
we've
within
closed.
the limitations of the rules of our community?
Right, so the rules allow him to apply for this rezoning,
And
not
that's-
to build at an R6 that's not compatible and that has no yes boxes checked. There has to be a reason in my mind to overlook the problems with this, to go against the land use plan, to go against town staff, to go against every recommendation that we've seen. And I don't see any
Knowing
part
a
of
little bit of the
this.
history of this, I do know that the requirements, the goalposts that he has to, and when I say he, that the person that is requesting it has changed recently to the point where you cannot build if you don't know what you're going to be required to do.
You could build right now with 10,000 square foot lots.
Okay. Okay. I don't see all of this other stuff. I don't see the argument is what I'm saying.
Well,
He's
what would the
within-
argument be
he's
in
within-
support of it that
he's
does not
within-
connect to who the applicant is?
The applicant is within the rules that the town has set forth. Am I correct?
To apply for this rezoning,
Well,
yes.
I mean, as the land currently sits, it's
can
zoned a
request-
certain
he can
way,
ask
and
for a
he can
reply.
request the board to rezone that property to a different
And that's what
zoning
he's asking
category,
for.
which is what he's asking.
Okay.
But the board has discretion to allow that or not allow that, depending on what the board believes the zoning should be, whether it's reasonable, whether it's consistent with the land use plan. And if you do find it's inconsistent with the land use plan, that doesn't mean you can't approve it. It just means that if you find it's inconsistent with the land use plan and you still approve it, it has the effect of amending the land use plan going forward.
Yeah, and
So,
to be fair, to simply approve an application because the person has the right to present an application would totally negate the need for an application. I could apply to build a skyscraper on this parcel. It doesn't mean that you should say yes because I have the right to do it. The reason our board exists for something like this is so that we could consider the impact of something like this. without the applicant in mind, because we to be fair, we have to not consider the applicant in any case, who the applicant is. In any case like this, it's the only way to be consistently fair. A conditional gives us the ability to lock in a lot of the promises that we like, that we're hearing, to lock it in to protect the public that put us here and make sure that's what happens.
Now, instead of voting straight R6, can we put a condition on this?
No.
I think
They're
you would
not
have to
open.
submit a new application, I think, yeah.
Which we requested at our meeting. And so much is being said. I fear that were this not about who, the what we would not be hearing about tonight. We have set the precedent with staff and with the planning board that we have certain expectations moving forward. We have staff in place for a reason. We have a planning board in place for a reason. There are lines of defense to hear things, to ask questions that we don't get to do on the spot. There are a lot of things about this that are being brought up, and it's hard when those personal and professional lines are being blurred, that it is portrayed as though we're making a decision based on the who and not the what. Were this a big name developer, it wouldn't have gotten this far. So it's nice that this plot plan looks nice, and we have all of these things to say. Those opportunities were asked of you to meet us at that negotiation table, to hear our requests, to understand what some of the hesitations would be from the board. That's why we put it in place, to be able to have those conversations, because that's my job, is to communicate on behalf of everyone here. I'm your neighbor too. So it's difficult when those opportunities for negotiation are met with just a no. It's hard for us to be able to say that we had a seat at the table or had a chance to advocate for the town when it's dismissed.
Jim, for the sake of consistency statement, is there anything you want to add? Or one way or another? Dan, you got to help us make sure we've done enough consistency statement stuff.
Yeah. Do you want me to, if I may, I can just read the statute that.
Sure, we want to
lays
cover
this out,
ourselves,
just
so
you
yeah.
know exactly what the requirements are. It's one, for anyone who wants to read it, it's 160D 605, and it refers to what the governing board has to issue or has to discuss when considering a rezoning. The first is the plan consistency statement, and it reads, when adopting or rejecting any zoning text or map amendment, the governing board shall approve a brief statement describing whether its action is consistent or inconsistent with an adopted comprehensive or land use plan. The requirement for a plan consistency statement may also be met by a clear indication in the minutes of the governing board that at the time of the action on the amendment, the governing board was aware of and considered the planning board's recommendations, which is in the packet, and any relevant portions of an adopted comprehensive or land use plan, which I believe are also in the staff report. If a zoning map amendment is adopted and the action was deemed inconsistent with the adopted plan, the zoning amendment has the effect of also amending any future land use map in the approved plan, and no additional request or application for a plan amendment is required. A plan amendment and a zoning amendment may be considered concurrently. The plan consistency statement is not subject to judicial review. If a zoning map amendment qualifies as a large-scale rezoning, which I don't believe this does.
Not in this case, yeah.
The statement describing plan consistency may address overall rezoning and describe how the analysis policy relevant adopted plans were considered in the action taken identified.
Okay.
The second thing you need to consider, in addition to the consistency statement, is an additional reasonableness statement for rezonings. And that section reads, when adopting or rejecting any petition for a zoning map amendment, a statement analyzing the reasonableness of the proposed rezoning shall be approved by the governing board. This statement of reasonableness may consider, among other factors, the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area proposed to be rezoned, the benefits and detriments to the landowners, the neighbors, and the surrounding community, the relationship between the current, actual, and permissible development on the tract and adjoining areas, and the development that would be permissible under the proposed amendment. Why the action taken is in the public interest, and any changed conditions warranting the amendment. If a zoning map amendment qualifies as large-scale rezoning, they may address the overall rezoning. Again, that doesn't apply.
Okay.
And both of those statements can be done as a single statement and be reflected in the minutes. So essentially what you need to do is just decide, is this rezoning consistent or inconsistent with our current land use plan?
All right, let's start with that.
Okay.
We're going to dumb it down for me.
All right.
All right. Is there anyone here that thinks this is consistent with the land use plan? This is not a vote. I mean, I'm just asking you guys.
It is consistent, is it not?
It's not.
I
As
believe
far
the
as
staff
it is right
report
now, but
said,
not
as-
the recommend-
said that it was not. I believe the density or the let's see what it says. The property's non-alignment with zoning in the future land use map. Request for high density residential is not compatible with the future land use plan. I
That's
believe.
not high density. That's
I believe this is currently medium density, and that what they're requesting would be defined as high density.
Yeah, our R6 is defined as high density.
Yeah. I mean, that's the tightest density zoning we have as a town. As it sits as R10, it's compatible. But Jeff's report pointed out that it is not compatible with the land use plan, nor do I believe it is compatible with the land use plan that we're expected to adopt after this. All right. Dan, what was the next one?
So did
So,
we establish?
It was a whole lot. You don't have to read it all again. But in
If-
your opinion,
so-
is there something that we have not discussed that you think we are missing that we should discuss right now?
Well, you'll need to decide as a board whether it's consistent or inconsistent with the land use plan. And again, if it is inconsistent, that is not a death knell for the rezoning request.
Okay.
It just means that you would be voting to amend the land use plan.
Okay.
Because the land use plan is a policy adopted by
It's
the
a
board,
living-
subject to change by the board.
Right. But you don't need an official vote for is it compatible. Do you need an official vote for that?
You do. You need to decide whether it's consistent or inconsistent with the current land use plan.
Okay. Somebody make a motion that says whether it is or isn't. Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, this is not a necessarily no, it's just a statement that we have to
I'm going to make a motion. In concurrence with the staff and planning board recommendations, I make a motion to deny the rezoning from an R10 to an R6.
All right,
Well,
so
that's a fine motion to make, but I think part of that motion needs to be, I think we need to decide whether it's consistent or inconsistent,
Because it is not consistent
and that's fine.
with the land
And
use plan.
also, a reasonableness statement would be required, whether it's reasonable and why or why not.
can we do the reasonable statement after a decision?
I believe that
I
my
think
motion.
the decision should be based on the findings of whether it's compatible or incompatible and whether it's reasonable or not reasonable. So I think that discussion should occur before a vote.
All right. Can her motion be
Her
what
motion
it
can
is?
be made, but I think in discussing that motion, those are the factors that the board should discuss and consider.
All right. Could her motion be to deny it because it is incompatible and not reasonable?
It
And-
could, and I think we would want to articulate how it's incompatible and how it's, and why.
And can we do that during discussion of the
I believe you
motion?
could, yes.
Okay. I'm not trying to trip you up, Dan.
No,
I
I'm-
really, I want to do
Yes.
it the right way.
Right.
All right. So refine your motion for us, please, if you don't mind. Or we can roll with it like it is.
This is the first time a reasonableness statement
Yeah.
has been required. And so I'm curious as to why.
The statutory requirement.
With statutory requirement now versus.
Because we haven't seen a lot of straight R6 rezones since we've been up here. Actually, I don't know that we've seen any since we've been up here.
The suggested statement of consistency, as you all see it portrayed to us, the proposed rezoning to R6 is not compatible with the town's 2021 land use plan for area designated as medium density. The rezoning request could potentially have an unreasonable impact on the surrounding community and harm the public health, safety, and general welfare for the reasons stated in the evaluation. I choose to affirm that statement from staff, as I'm choosing to do with my motion, that I am affirming both the planning board and the staff's recommendation to disapprove.
Yeah, I think that's a sufficient motion, and we can have discussion.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion.
I'm just gonna say that I don't agree. If I say anything else, we chastise that.
Jim?
I have to disagree with that. I'm going to have to say, I mean, they say they disagree with it because it doesn't fit the land use plan, but yet it fits into it to a certain point.
Shh, guys.
If I've heard it correctly, correct?
It does not. It's not currently consistent with the land use plan because the density is different. But the board could decide it's inconsistent with the current land use plan, but we're going to amend the land use plan.
The land use plan calls for medium density. So with the change to high density R6, we have to say we are not following our land use plan.
You're in effect amending the land use plan by,
which is what the staff use in order to propose these decisions to us.
Because in the future, then we're going to be limited on what could be built there, correct?
Well, if it was approved, then it would force us to change the land use map to reflect a high density area where there wasn't one before. So right now it's medium, and so I believe that simply fact based, you tell me if I'm wrong, that is in fact not compatible. But it not being compatible does not mean that you can't approve it. You still could say, okay, yes, it is not compatible. However, I find reason to approve this, and it means that we would then change our land use map to reflect the density that we changed. So you can, in the same breath, say that it is not compatible, but that's okay, and we still approve it, and the map will be changed to reflect. So it's not like when we do Board of Adjustment quasi-judicial stuff, it has to yay or nay every single box to even be considered. So here we could say, okay, it doesn't meet this, and it's not recommended by staff, but we feel that it could be approved, and then everything else follows it to self-correct.
I feel I know it doesn't meet the land use plan, but I think we should be able to approve it, to work on to change the land use plan there.
Okay. Steve?
I'm in agreement with that.
Okay, so the motion was to deny. Any other input before I call the vote? Make sure everyone's had the opportunity. All right, then all those in favor of the denial, please raise your right hand. Opposed? 3-1. Okay. So the denial has been denied. Okay.
Same language.
But that does not mean approval. So if it's going to be approved, somebody else has got to motion to approve. Am I correct in that?
that's correct.
Okay.
Along with a reasonableness. Yeah, and I think the board has been discussing this, but I think as part of the motion would include a statement of whether it's consistent or inconsistent with the land use plan, and a reasonableness statement as to why the is or is not reasonable, depending on what the motion
Look
is.
forward to that articulation.
Okay.
Yeah, I make a motion we approve the change from an R10 to an R6.
As part of your motion, do you believe that this is compatible with the land use plan?
I believe the land use plan can be changed to make it compatible.
But you have to say yes or no.
Yes.
Is it compatible?
It's compatible.
Okay, and is it reasonable and why?
It's reasonable because the opportunity, we can't see it, we don't have a crystal ball. We have to go on what the plan says they're going to do.
No, we don't.
Just
You
what
should
anybody
not be
else.
considering that.
Okay, then carry through to the other question.
Why is it reasonable and why?
I think it's very reasonable to request to.
No, not whether or not he can request, whether or not you want to approve. Why is it reasonable to approve?
I'm confused on the question, so we'll have to clarify that.
You have to decide whether the rezoning this to R6 is consistent with the land use plan, and you have to decide if rezoning this to R6 is reasonable and articulate.
It's not consistent with the plan, but it is reasonable to consider.
Right, but we're not deciding if it's reasonable to consider.
Okay.
Because it is inherently his right to apply. We are deciding if it's reasonable for you, Steve, to
change the
approve his application to change the zoning, not whether or not he has the right to apply for it.
Yes.
Then why is it reasonable to approve it? It has to be part of your
There's-
motion.
there's
I'm not
nothing-
trying to beat you
okay.
up, but it
I
has
don't
to be
know how
part
to
of it.
word the motion. I'm going to withdraw any motion.
Okay, Dan,
I think you just need to, I'll read the sort of statement of reasonableness may consider, among other factors, the size, physical conditions, other attributes of the area, the benefits and detriments to the landowners, neighbors, and surrounding community, the relationship between the current actual and permissible development on the tract and adjoining areas, and the development that would be permissible under the new zoning, why the action taken is in the public interest, any change conditions that warrant a rezoning. Those are all types of things you could consider in a reasonableness statement. And I think you just articulate why you think it's reasonable. If the motion is to approve, then I think you just articulate in the motion and in discussion why the rezoning is reasonable.
I retracted my motion, so
Okay.
it sounds like double speak to me, so I don't want to participate.
Okay.
Next batter up.
I'm trying to figure out how to word it
And
myself.
it doesn't need to be a long, convoluted statement, just a statement of why you think it's reasonable.
Yeah. And again, not reasonable that he can apply for this.
Correct. To change the zoning is reasonable.
Right. The why this change is reasonable.
I need to think. What?
We're with, staff has already given us that.
I believe he's done as much explaining.
Yeah. No, sir.
This
This
is
is
not
not
conditional.
No one's
we're looking
discussing
at-
conditions.
We're not.
They're
We're
not,
not.
I don't believe anyone has even suggested that. I understand.
All right, but there's no conditions in this. It's not even a part of this. Right, but that's not what we're doing
Not
tonight.
anymore.
All we're doing is rezoning from R10
It's a
R6.
straight rezoning request, and there are certain requirements that they have to do that. That's what we're doing.
That's why this seems so different for everyone who's paying attention.
Because it's really hard to muddy up, to clear up that muddy water of personal and professional.
So what we're looking for is the benefit for going to R6, correct?
Correct.
It gives us more expandability to open up that area
For high density.
For high density. Even though it's medium density, we can also set conditions on that later on for anybody else that
And
wants to.
R6 is high density.
And Dan, you have to tell us if that's a sufficient reasonability statement.
I think it would be. I mean, it's,
Okay.
it's a statement of why it's reasonable to rezone it to R6. That's all it really requires.
Okay. And then whether or not it's compatible with the land
Compatible
use
with land
plan.
use plan,
Right.
And you could say that it is not,
It
but
is
still
not
make.
compatible, correct.
Okay. All right. Does everyone understand the motion? This is what you're signing your name to. Okay. All right, Jim.
Don't ask me to say that again.
Okay, you correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not making the motion, but
No.
helping clarify it. And you tell me, okay.
Yes.
I believe that Mr. Kazakavich's motion is to approve the rezone request. It is not compatible with the
Compatible,
land
correct.
use plan.
Correct.
However, it is reasonable because it allows us to make the area higher density.
Correct. With conditions.
No, there
No.
are no conditions.
No.
Not
No,
one.
that's true.
Not one.
All right, you are certain that is the motion you're making. Okay, and you are certain that legally speaking, it satisfies the requirements.
I mean, whether it satisfies the requirements may ultimately be up to a judge one day.
I know, but you got to
it's-
tell us, Dan.
yeah,
I don't know a judge.
All it requires is a statement of whether the rezoning is reasonable. Essentially, whether it's in the public interest, whether it's good, whether there's reasons to do it.
All right, in your legal opinion, we have met the requirements for that.
I think the motion had a statement of reasonableness, and I think that would be sufficient.
Can I just suggest in there, reason is the size and the condition of So, what you could say is it is reasonable because of the size and the
And
condition of the
pro-
land,
property, correct.
of the parcel.
What about the size and
And
condition
I
of
will
the
say
parcel?
too, there is language up there that you could just reverse, sort of, if you wanted to use
Oh, Lord, I
that
wear
as
my
sort of a
glasses.
model. The statement of consistency. Yeah.
There it is.
Okay, so the proposal rezone it to R6 is compatible. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's
It-
well, it's not.
I mean, it's
It
not
is not
compatible,
compatible.
but
Right,
you
but
could
I'm
use.
just saying that's what you're talking about.
I was just
It's
trying to
not
give some
compatible.
suggestion of
Yeah,
idea
it's
of
not
what you could
compatible
say
with the
if you wanted
town's
to.
the town's 2021 land use plan as designated as medium density.
So
Because if you
for
go to
example,
Go ahead.
up there it says that it will harm the public health, safety, and general
yes,
welfare.
I don't believe that it will
You could
harm.
use those factors if you wanted. If you found the opposite of that,
I do find the opposite, and I don't believe that it will harm the health, safety, and general welfare for this reason that's stated. I don't feel that it will be detrimental to anybody's health or a financial loss or whatever. So, do you want me to that be my motion?
Oh, no.
well, we do have a pending
Do
motion.
you
on the
want to?
floor.
Do you want to use that?
I'll
You
use
gonna
what
do
she
this?
just said.
Oh.
Did you
Yeah.
amend your motion?
Yeah, I amend the motion to fit that with that it is not detrimental to that surrounding area and health of the people.
Okay, motion on the floor.
Okay. There is a motion on the floor. Mr. Kazakavich has amended it to reflect the wording that Ms. Hawley suggested. Is there any further suggestion? Discussion. Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand.
To be passed.
That was a yes. And opposed? 3-1. It is approved. All right. You guys want to take a recess before we go to the next one? Take a bathroom
Honestly,
break
no.
or no? It's up to you guys.
Nope.
All right. We're
It's
going to roll
around
into the next
9:30.
one, which is our comprehensive land use plan.
Hey, Mayor, you want to take a 5-minute break? Let
I
people clear out.
asked
Don't want
the
to
board.
leave.
I asked the board, and they did not want to.
It's gonna get
I don't know that
disruptive
I
right
have
here.
the singular authority to
They're
do
making
that.
enough. Let's take a 2-minute break.
Is that okay
Make a
with
motion.
everybody?
Yeah.
We're going to adjourn for 2 minutes.